What's going on, guys? Rich Boy J back again with another video, and we're doing things a little bit differently today. As you'll see just by the screen, I have a special array of guests today. As you guys probably have not have heard, BRICKFIESTA was canceled for this year, so I honestly don't know exactly whose idea this was. Whoever decided to come up with this, I'd love to give you credit for it. But we all basically just decided to get the crew who would have been at BRICKFIESTA live here for a stream for us to actually get to enjoy each other's company and get to interact with you guys. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm working on an ATST. Anyone else in the call? Like, what are you guys working on?
Hello, everybody. Garrett here. I'm not going to be building any mocks.
Wow. SMH.
Real shock. I'm not building a mock. I pulled out some choice stats here. Let's see. We got, for starting off with the favorite of mine.
Bruh.
Action, Battle, Endor, Assault.
I actually have like 5 of those now.
I'm pretty sure this one won like some awards or something.
Oh yeah.
I got a Imperial Dropship Classic. A lot of these still in box, so I figured I'd bust out one of those because this one and the indoor one I'm probably gonna take apart, immediately after building it. And then on this bad boy.
Wow, I remember when you got that.
I have one built and I had one in box and had it this whole time. And you know what? I remember the feelings, the warm feelings I had building this. I actually built this, the other one that I had built somewhere. I built that at Jalen's house. Like the same day I think these sets launched. We bought a bunch of them and we had a great time that night. So I was like, you know what, this brings warm feelings to my heart, so I'm gonna build this one. And then for final flex, I'm not gonna build this, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, open it up, dude. Go for it. Pop it open. All right, who else we got?
I'm working on a small Japanese build right now.
What exactly is it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Introduce yourselves, everyone who's...
Yeah, let the world know who you are.
So my name's David, DP Studios.
There you go.
I'm just working on a small Japanese era build.
Oh, sweet.
Just Japanese style build. They have like a little bathhouse type building, and I have like a river and some trees. I don't know if I'll do cherry trees or just like white birch or something. But I ordered some flex tubes, so I'm going to try to do those curved trees.
Oh, sweet. I know exactly what you're talking about.
See how that works out.
David, did you cut your hair? Did that say in the stream?
No. Got in a ponytail right now.
I was going to say, if David cut his hair, that's the hot topic of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hold on, we are lagging.
Yeah, David, you're the longest haired Lego builder I know. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I'm trying to catch him.
Hello.
Hold on one sec. I'm gonna restart my computer real quick.
And we dropped down to 8 people.
They'll be back and in greater numbers.
Eight people like watching, or 8 people on our call?
There's 8 people watching, but it's back already up to 32. Okay. You give the people what they want and they come back.
Bro, they want to see Gertie build a mock.
They want to see clones.
They do want to see clones.
Clone bases, that's the thing.
Oh, I have a clone.
Guys,
I'm legitimately thinking about doing like a nostalgic clone base just for fun, like using old techniques. You aren't thinking, you know you will, because that's the way of the...
Bro, all you need are 2x4 dark gray bricks.
Exactly, and then you place them 2 studs by, right? 2 studs yeah. Cross, right? You guys still have amazing build.
Alright, sorry about that, guys. We're back now. And yeah, Garrett is on stream, so tell your friends. Is BBP here, or is he just...
Are you there?
Oh, there he is.
All right, BVP and I have a bone to pick with each other.
Yeah, a little bit.
We have a feud going on. BVP said some things I disagree with.
Oh, I think most people in here are definitely gonna agree with me though on this one.
Oh, really? And the thing is, his abilities have made him arrogant. That's the worst part.
Is this the prequel sequel thing?
Oh yeah.
This is the prequel sequel thing.
Alright, well, I argue that the originals are better.
All right, case
That's
closed.
not part of the argument.
Case closed.
That's already.
That is already a fact.
Before we ruin our day talking prequels, let's talk about Fiesta for a moment. Let's talk about, for anyone watching that is only doesn't live in Texas or live around here and doesn't know what Fiesta is. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Let's give him a taste of Brick Fiesta. Everyone talk about your first Brick Fiesta and what it was like.
So, my first Brick Fiesta was in 2015. It was actually in Houston. So to anyone who doesn't know, Brick Fiesta is weird in that it actually changes cities every year. So it cycles between Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, the 4 biggest cities in Texas. And it kind of makes sense because Texas is a big state. It doesn't, there's less of a central place, whereas like Chicago, like Brickell, Chicago or something is very central. However, I think there should just be in Austin every year. Anyway, that's all besides the point.
Boo!
That's Brick
Houston.
That's Brick Fiesta politics. I just think Austin it's just a central location in Texas.
Houston is Houston, though.
Houston is Houston. Houston's the better city, but
Okay, good.
Anyway, so my first it was a year where it was in Houston, so it was easy for me to go. And Jay and I had become friendly recently. We started working with each other earlier that summer. And then he was told me about it, and it was there in the Galleria where we worked. So I was just oh, okay, great. So I went with my girlfriend at the time and my brother, and made a whole day of it. And it was kind of small. That was definitely the smallest Brick Fiesta that New York go on. It was just in that weird room, convention area. But it was cool. That was my first exposure to Lego Box, and Jalen had brought his AT-AT there. It was I think the first time I'd seen that in person. I was wow, this is amazing. And kind of 2015 was a big year for me getting back into Lego and stuff, so I think Brick Fiesta had a big part of that.
That was the year of The Force Awakens.
And it was a big year just in general, Star Wars and Lego.
Alright. Anyone else can recall their first Brick Fiesta experience?
Yeah, I've got one.
Alright.
I'm Peter. Yeah, I'll sit down and see that. I'm Peter, by the way, for everyone that doesn't know me. Kind of small in the Lego community, but my first Brick Fiesta was 2017, and that was my first convention in general was Brick Fiesta, just after moving down to Texas. And the first thing that I noticed in the convention hall was this huge Scarif tower. I thought for a second, or for half a day actually, that it was Chris from, if you guys know Chris Productions, he was doing a huge Scarif at the exact same time that he ended up bringing to, I think it was Brickfair, Virginia that year, 2017, and I thought, I was freaking out.
No, I think he took it to Brick World.
Brickworld, okay, yeah, it was Brickworld, but I was freaking out because I thought I was about to meet Chris Productions at Brick Fiesta, and I was wondering why he was down in Texas, but it ended up being this crazy tower, and it was Jay and Garrett that ended up building it, so I got to meet them and hang out, so it was pretty cool, and I was impressed with their build and got to display a couple of my own. So it was just a fun time. That's how I really got plugged into the lug community in general, where I got connected with the Houston Brick Club, which is kind of the registered lug that's part of, or that's out of Houston. So it was a pretty cool experience, and go to Brick Fiesta.
Do it. All right.
Whenever it comes back.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Peter, you had built a Battlefront 2 mock and something else. Was it a World War II mock? Stalingrad?
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was. It was a Stalingrad, and then the Battlefront 2015 Jawa Refuge mock, the one from the Tatooine map thing.
Oh wow. Good times,
Yeah.
man. It's weird to think we've known each other so long at this point.
Seriously. That was 3 years ago. It feels, man, time goes by quick.
All right. Who's next up?
Alright, so my. Alright, yeah, you can go there.
Sorry.
Oh, you got it.
You go.
All you. No, you got it. Alright, fine. So my first phone was 2016, quite a while ago. And it was back when Kashyyyk was around. I don't really remember much. I really just remember like meeting Jay for the first time. That was cool. I remember, of course, seeing his big AT-AT with like the snow speeder flying around on like a track. Was it like on a track or something?
It was on a track. It was on train tracks.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. But yeah, it was still small then. It was like a really small, like, room in like a hotel or something. So
Yep.
yeah, it was fun, and obviously I thought it was a good time because I ended up going. I missed last year just because of vacations, but I was gonna go this year, obviously, but it got canceled. But I'm kind of going next year as well. So
I'm glad that it's at least coming back to Houston next year. Like they didn't just could skip Houston and move forward. So
oh yeah, makes it convenient for me at least.
yeah. No, the thing that sucks about it being canceled this year was I was gonna take Star Killer there, which is a huge mock I've been working on for so long. So I would have really liked to take this mock somewhere and get to show a lot of people, but unfortunately that's not the case. It is, of course, a huge burden off of my back because I don't have to take the mock anywhere.
Would you have to like rent a U-Haul or something to carry that thing?
Yeah, I was gonna rent a U-Haul and take it down to the convention.
Were you gonna finish in time, Jay?
No, that's the other thing. I was nowhere close. Like, if Brick Fiesta was still happening, I would be screwed. Like, it would not be a good time.
Secret blessing.
Exactly.
Having to display a half-finished mock.
Yeah, no, that would have sucked. I would have been so stressed out trying to figure out how to get that mock there this year.
Yeah, I know last minute building too well, man. It's not fun.
Oh my god, we got to talk about that on the stream. But who else was gonna talk about their first Brick Fiesta experience?
Well, I was just gonna say mine wasn't drastic as yours. I think did I meet you, Jalen, before I went into 2018? I don't remember exactly.
You may have met us at the Lego store before.
Yeah.
I don't remember, honestly. Yeah.
But what was really cool is that Beyond the Brick was there.
They
right?
were.
So that was nice.
That was such a surprise.
Matt from the Brick Quiz was also there with you guys, so that was awesome.
Yep.
Matt.
Shadow
You
Big.
brought your,
Okay, so in terms of Brick Fiesta stories, we'll tell Peter's story, and then we'll also tell our Matt story.
Oh yeah. That's probably the first and last time we can get Matt to come to Brick Fiesta. But so I guess I can talk about my Brick Fiesta story. The first time I went was it was in San Antonio, and I'm trying to think, what year was it? I think it was 20.
I think it was 2015. I was wrong when I said 2015. My first was 2016. It was summer of 2016 that you did.
I went before 2015 though. 2015 was. What was 2015? Oh, wait, I have to always try to remember.
Because it's San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, right?
I think Dallas, Houston, or maybe it is Houston. I don't know. Yeah, no, you're right. You're totally right. So I went San Antonio. So how many numbers backwards is that?
That would be if it's Austin before Houston and San Antonio before Austin, so it'd be 2014.
Yeah, okay, 2014 sounds right. So yeah, I went in 2014, and this was when I was first getting into like building large scale mocks, and I thought I had prepared my large scale pod race mock. It was basically just the stadium. Actually, yeah, it was a stadium and a couple of custom pod racers. I built 2 custom pod racers. I think I built Aldar Betos and Gascanos. And on the way there, so it was just a mess from the start. So the mock was not finished. The mock was nowhere close to finished. I brought so many parts thinking, oh yeah, I'm just gonna knock out this huge chunk of the stadium when I get there. No big deal. I hadn't yet really had to sit down and grind out a mock in a short period of time, so I didn't have a good understanding of just how insane that process can be. So I had a very I'd say probably a 25% complete stadium that I was planning on taking there. And on the way there, I was driving over a hill and on the other side of the hill there was a wreck, so I had to slam on the brakes in the car that I was taking. And the worst part, it wasn't even my vehicle, it was my aunt's vehicle. So, like, I was very concerned about, like, losing pieces in there. And, like, the worst possible thing happened, because when I slammed on the brakes, like, everything that was in the third row, it was an SUV, literally just flew to the front seat. So it was just a mess. Like, it was literally depressing. Like, that was, I'd say, an all-time low in my LEGO career. That was the one time I seriously considered just not building anymore. Because I was just like, this is too much. I can't handle this. Like, this freaking sucks. So I get to the convention, and I remember the first thing someone said to me, like everyone was trying to figure out who reserved this giant space for what was supposed to be my pod race mock. So, like, I start setting my pod racers up, because that's the only thing I could, like, get rebuilt to actually display. And this guy comes over to me, and he's like, hey, like, next time don't reserve so much space, because, you know, like, we needed it for other builds. And, like, little did he know, I'm like, trust me, I planned to fill this space. I did not just reserve this just because. But, like, all the things I brought were just destroyed. So, like, that made it worse. And like I said, I was just super depressed about the entire experience initially. I think, like, as the convention went on and I started, like, looking at mocks and maybe meeting a few more people, I kind of got in a better mood. And by the end of it, I was, like, super motivated to get home and start rebuilding. But it was such a depressing experience initially, working on what was going to be my first large-scale build and taking it to a con, and then everything just falling apart. So I've been fortunate to not have had experienced anything like that since then. But since then, I've been to basically every Brick Fiesta, and there have been highs and there have been lows, but Brick Fiesta will always have a special place in my heart.
Jay, how long have you been in Texas for?
How long have I been in Texas?
Yeah, like living here.
I lived here my whole life. I was born and raised here. Yeah.
Born and bred.
Aw, yeah. But yeah. So let's go ahead and get into that Peter story, because this was I still just don't understand how this happened.
This is where I figured out who Peter was as a person.
Right. Oh yeah. So Peter, do you want to start? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can introduce this story. It's pretty entertaining. So this story takes place in what is it? June of 2018, Brick World. And this was my first time going to Brick World. And if you guys have never been to Brick World, highly recommend it. Awesome convention. But this time I was bringing two different mocks, and the main one was a Star Wars Battlefront 2 feed mock. So basically, like, the entire, like, front part of feed. If you guys have ever played Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's like the main part from the second arch to the very front of the palace. So it was a pretty big mock. I think it was 12 gray base plates. Not nearly as big as some of Jay's, but it was pretty big for my standards. And I had started building it like a year prior, and it actually kind of was sparked by Jay giving me like this bag of maybe 50 2x4 sloped sand green, or yeah, it's like 2x4 sloped sand green slopes.
I totally forgot about that.
That was like the inspiration behind like creating this arch. And if you guys look at the picture on my Instagram, or I think it's on my Flickr as well, you'll see like those exact parts used in the arch. So it's like an integral part. So Jay inspired me in a way to build that mock. But this is all leading into the story. So I had started working on this thing a year prior and was building a lot of it and taking my time, just kind of thinking through it. But come like a week before Brick World, I had maybe a third or maybe a quarter of this mock done. Like three or four, maybe five of these gray base plates fully filled in, and I had so many left. And I finished. I like worked pretty crazy hard in Houston for a couple of days to get about half the thing done, and I brought it to Brick World Chicago halfway done, like fully halfway, not even over halfway really. And I brought maybe like a quarter of my entire collection of Lego parts, like a ridiculous amount of parts in a bunch of storage bins, because I knew I had to finish this thing. I had this really cool vision for getting this thing done and seeing it to completion, and that's kind of my personality. Like if I start something, I'm gonna finish it, and I didn't want to not finish this seed mock because I knew it was gonna be really cool, and I was excited to see the end result. So I knew I was gonna finish it, and I brought all these parts, and I brought my wiring kit and my soldering iron because I do like electrical wiring on my own. Just 'cause I think it's more fun. And I spent about 3 days, like from I think I got there Monday evening or Tuesday I think, and set up on Wednesday. And I was one of the first people setting up in the convention hall and got all my stuff out and spent basically the next like 3 days working on this mock to get it done by the public convention hours on Saturday morning. And if you guys saw me at the convention, you basically saw me at the table at the Rebel Lug booth and like the entire time. I was just sitting behind this speed mock and just working and it was really fun. I got to meet so much people, and I still got to hang out and do fun stuff, but I was working on this mock nonstop. And the last day before the con, it was like Friday, I had still maybe 3 or 4 gray base plates left to do, like the entire front part of the palace. And I knew it was like crunch time and I had to get this thing done. And I stayed up. I pulled an all-nighter finishing the speed mock. Like literally did not sleep. Stayed up all night. Went into the public convention like without any sleep. I think I worked up to like probably the last hour before this thing started, like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, just finishing this mock. And a couple guys stayed up late with me. I think Grant Davis. I think Jay and Garrett were helping quite a bit. Or Jay, Garrett, were you there that year?
Yeah, Garrett was there.
Yeah,
that's right.
I didn't stay super late with you that night, but I during the day, the first that day, not that night, but I was helping a bit.
Yeah, that's right. So like so many different people from different lugs and guys that I just met there were helping out. They like lent me their some figures and vehicles to use, and it was like this crazy collaboration between parts, and there were a bunch of different builders who let me use their parts for different stuff and redesigning some of my domes that I had designed poorly.
Oh yeah, didn't Clone Army Customs give you a bunch of figures for your build? Was it them?
Yeah,
or was it,
yeah. Tyler gave me. I didn't keep them, but Tyler let me use like 12 of the P2 rocket troopers from Battlefront 2, which is really cool. So I had this ridiculous amount of rocket troopers on the mock, but I got it done, and it was pretty crazy. There was a little bit more detail that I would like to have added on the sides back by the palace, but for the most part, like this entire build got done, and it was all thanks to LEGO community. So it was pretty crazy, and that was just a fun memory of staying up all night working on Legos. So yeah, that's my story.
No, I still.
As someone that witnessed that whole thing, like I mean, even the way he talks about it, honestly undersells how much work he got done in like 4 days or whatever. Like, I mean, it literally went from like a pretty much like unfinished work in progress to like a complete mock.
Yeah.
Not even like a scale one, like big. But it was funny witnessing like, you know, during setup, like people would kind of come in and like tag out and like help him. They'd be like, "Hey, what do you need me to do?" And he'd be like, "All right, just lay out, you know, these filler bricks here." And I'm like, okay, and then they'd work for a couple hours and then they dip, you know, and someone else would come in. But it was cool. And then like coming in on the first convention day and thinking like I think you were there in the morning setting up. And you was like, "Been here all night." You're like, "Oh, I took like an hour nap or something like that." And I was just like, "Oh my god."
An hour nap. Oh my god.
You said something like that, and I was just like, "Oh my lord."
Yeah.
It was still like
I think it was like
everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. So I owe it to you guys and to the community for finishing that one. It was really was a joint build. So that was fun though. That was a fun memory.
I still just cannot believe you did that. Like, I remember, like, we were all just kind of like, "Oh, there's no way he's gonna finish." Like no one expected for you to get far on that at all. And like, you were dedicated, dude. Like, just made it happen. Like, I can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Speaking
fun.
of outside help on an unfinished mock, I guess that's the segue to Matt. Okay,
Oh yeah, good times.
So yeah, he so everyone, I assume most everyone watching is familiar with Matt. But he so he came down for Brick Fiesta. I guess it would have been later that same summer that we were talking about.
Yeah, that was 2018. Yeah.
So that was the first time we met Matt at that convention. I don't know when you and Matt started talking about him coming down and visiting us before that convention or not, but anyway, it came to fruition there. He was like, he wanted to come down and see Crate in person. This is when all the Crate streams are going on. And, you know, he's like, yeah, we'll come and visit, go to BRICKFIESTA. And he's like, yeah, that sounds like a great time. You know, awesome. So he comes down like a few days before. And so, by the way, so we live in Houston, and BRICKFIESTA that year was being held in San Antonio, which is like a 3-hour drive away. So it's like not like right by us, but like super far. But it's a 3-hour drive. So he flies into Houston. He was staying at Jalen's. We still had work to be done on Crate, and we basically just like enlisted him to help, and like he stayed up all night with us, like all those nights working on it, and like on a mock that he like didn't really have anything to do with, that we were like just had him doing so much work. I mean, it couldn't have been fun for him. I mean, he'll say it's fun, and it was fun hanging out, obviously, but like he was doing legitimate work. And and then when we had to transport it, you know, he's carrying, you know, giant pieces of Crate, like these big mountain pieces and boxes full of all these spare bricks we need to bring to build, and like helping it pack it up in my granddad's truck that I had borrowed, which is like, you know, an older F-150, and it's like in the bed of the truck. It's also hot. This is in July in Houston.
Yeah.
So we're like, you know, loading this thing up late at night to drive, you know, to get to San Antonio at like midnight or something. And like, we're all hot and sweaty and tired. And then it was 4 of us. It was us 3 and our friend Mark, aka John Cena, all staying in essentially a hotel room that was like...
It was a 1-bed hotel room. One king-size hotel.
No joke, it's almost smaller than my current room. And we were all just sleeping on like cots and stuff. And it was a lot of fun. But
it was a bonding experience for sure.
It was, and without Matt's help, like we wouldn't have been able to do it. So,
no, seriously, like Matt coming over, it was literally just like, all right, welcome, Matt. Like, thanks for coming to my house. Here's a bucket of parts. Start working. Thank you.
Stacking red crystal pieces.
Yeah. No, it was insane. Like,
Man.
we were up so late trying to get that thing finished, and they still didn't even get done. Like, I couldn't imagine if we didn't have help. I can't even imagine what would have happened. Like, ugh.
Shout out.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I actually remember that being my first one too, for Fiesta and stuff. And it was really cool to meet all you guys and stuff. And, yeah, I'm Galactic Bricks, by the way.
Holy crap! Where the heck have you been?
Galactic's in the call. That's right.
What the heck? You have a lot of explaining to do, sir. I'm still waiting for a Lego Star Wars YouTube Rewind 2000. Did you even make 2018?
Yeah, I kind of.
Yeah, I think he made 2018. That was the last one.
Oh, okay, then we need 2019.
I was planning on a comeback though, see Starkiller and all that, but you know, Corona and stuff. So.
Where have you been?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a long story, but well, part of it. So the Coruscant Road, I finished that with the buildings. I don't know, I got kind of lazy with, so right now I'm doing a micro build version of that, so kind of budgeting and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of lost interest. Then I was also dating a bit, so I don't know.
Wow.
Kind of ran out of time.
Oh my god. Yep.
Yeah.
You have so much to
Get in
learn.
the way of Lego building. I would never.
Garrett would never.
Yeah, I've lost my honor here.
To be fair, there were a number of times, Garrett, where you told me like you like blew off a potential date to like come over and work on Crate. So I think you paid
That was
your
a
dues.
different. That was a different time in my life for sure.
Oh, so you're not like that anymore?
I don't know. You know, I've obviously the passion for Lego building is kind of not like gone from me, but you know, life takes other directions. And
How much money would I need to pay you to make a comeback? What kind of long-term contract would we need to lock you down with?
I mean, if you like, so I don't know if you know who Patrick Mahomes is.
Okay, yeah,
but,
that sounds
like,
familiar.
Like a contract somewhere in that kind of range.
10 years, half $500 million.
That could probably persuade me.
We need to start a GoFundMe. Let's get a contract written up for Garrett Bricks.
Well, no, it's just like there's specific mocks that I have in mind that like, especially collaborating with Jalen, that like in the future were to come down, I would for sure jump back into it. So.
Oh yes. All right. Well, I'll hold out hope that one day you'll make a return, like Luke Skywalker.
Did Joel just get on?
Who?
Joel?
Yeah, he's here.
Hey.
Cool. Mike's good.
I have no respect for a man who values women over Lego. Get your priorities in order.
I ended it before the simping era, so.
Oh, okay. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Simping era? That started when the memes started.
We're in the golden age of simping. Look, I'm just saying, everyone in the chat, and everyone in this call are kings, so know your worth.
Exactly. There we go.
You're worth more than a Cloud City Boba Fett, according to the chat.
Oh, bro, guess who has a bro? Have you even seen my Cloud City Boba Fett?
I haven't seen it in person.
Oh my God, Garrett!
Go show it, Jake.
I'm not even gonna flex on y'all like that. I'll show some restraint.
You know what I saw has got? How much is the Captain Rex, the Phase 2 Captain Rex?
Oh yeah, it's like $100 figure now.
It's like,
Last time I checked, it was easy. It was like 120, something like that.
That's probably my most valuable thing. I bought that set on sale.
Nice.
Could you imagine if you were like bought a bunch of that?
Stocking up on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
With Obi-Wan commando droids, 2 speeders.
It was a dinky set.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like in college, and I was kind of getting back into buying Lego, and I was like, I didn't really care about Clone Wars. Like, I liked Clone Wars, but like the sets I was buying.
I think my heart's going out, man.
It was like super Clone Wars. But I was like, when I was younger, I always really wanted a Clone Commander, and I never really had any. Like, because like Cody and the Rex in the Clone Wars were always inexpensive sets. Like the ATS,
ATTE. And the Republic gunship.
And the gunship. And so then that set was cheap, and it was on sale at like a Walmart near me, and so I was like, I'll just go get it. I think that's Commander Rex or something. Like, I didn't got it. Now that figure's $100.
That's insane. Yeah, I bought that figure. I didn't buy the set. I just bought the figure for like $30 a couple of years ago, just because I was like, I want a Rex. Like, it'd be cool to have him. It's a good figure, and I'm glad I did, because I would really like hate myself now to have waited for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find him actually.
I think I got that set on Amazon when it was just retiring or something like that, because I thought it was cool.
Rich Boy Dave says, I bought Rex Phase 2 for $3. Oh my God.
No way.
Yeah, it's a good figure though. I mean, that's the thing. It sucks that like it's at this point it's an outdated figure. Like the face print specifically, like it still has the big Clone Wars bug eyes. So like it hurts me to know that people are spending such large amounts of money on an outdated figure.
I don't even think the helmet looks that good either. I'm not even a fan of it.
I think the helmet's fine. It has a nice amount of detail. I don't think it doesn't have the stench of the Clone Wars design, but it could certainly be updated for sure.
Oh my gosh. Did Jalen said it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than the Clone Wars helmet. The Clone helmet's from Clone Wars.
Getting attacked on the stream, I don't like it.
Oh, wait, hold on. Do you actually think the Clone Wars Lego designs look good?
I mean, they're clearly not good, but I like them.
Not the faces.
Oh my God.
Faces are ugly.
I don't think it's controversial to say that those were not the way.
The faces are like they give me nightmares. Yeah, they're not good.
Oh yeah. Holja Scatu says, I traded my kids.
Like an army.
Oh, go ahead.
Having like an army of the Clone Wars clones looks pretty awesome.
Like,
End up.
I wouldn't pay money for any of those figures. Like the Clone Wars clones, the movie ones look so much better in my opinion. Like, whenever I see people with like giant
More
armies of them,
realistic,
I'm
yeah.
just like, why not? Why not just get the good ones? It's like having.
The only
It's like having a fleet of like what's an old set? Like the original Naboo Starfighter set. That's what I like. Like if someone had like a 20 of the original Naboo Starfighter, I'd be like, I mean, it's a big fleet,
that'd be a bigger
but
flex. That'd be a bigger flex.
All the studs completely out, like the entire fighter.
I mean that original Naboo Starfighter looks so bad. I don't know. Apparently the Clone Wars clones are nostalgic. I guess I'm just old. I have no nostalgia for those clones.
Yeah, I mean they are a hallmark of that era of clone bases.
True.
Because they were in every single mock. So in that regard, they are nostalgic. And I personally would use them if I was going to make a mock for the purpose of nostalgia. But that's only it.
It's all David's fault.
It is David's fault. David has committed crimes
Yeah.
against the Lego community and needs to answer for them.
Didn't he sell like most of his clones?
Oh yeah, he doesn't have nearly as many as he used to. No, honestly, like if I was doing like clone bases back in the day, I would have just like done a smaller base with the original Phase 1 clones, like shelled out the money to get them, because those Clone
Those
Wars
are cool
clones,
clones.
they are cool. I like those more than the Clone Wars ones, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a unique design of the helmet.
I actually have a little bit of nostalgia for them.
I think those are both bad, but
I mean, they're not. Neither of them are good, but I'll take the originals over the Clone Wars ones. The originals were at least trying to look like the movies. The Clone Wars ones just said, "Forget it."
you just can't beat the newer
Right.
one. The newer one is so clean.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it is a good one.
How many of those 501st battle packs do you guys get?
that's a great
Probably
question.
Like 4.
Yeah.
Not a ridiculous amount.
I'll just.
Okay, fine. I mean, do you all actually like the design of those clones?
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Love 'em?
I do like
I
that.
don't know, it's just, maybe I'm not used to them yet, but from a first glance, they sort of look like knockoffs.
Yeah, that's what I've
Helmets.
everybody say.
I don't know. It's just
Maybe I
it's just
haven't looked at
different.
them long enough, but
Yeah.
and they're still better than the other 501st clone helmets.
But yeah, they're
those
better
ones
than
are
the
bad.
Clone Wars ones for sure.
No, I like them. I
I'm
mean,
talking about like
just
the
wish- I wish there was-
13 501st Trooper. I don't like that helmet. It looks pretty
I really just don't like the animated helmets in general. I think it's cool. Like Clone Wars is awesome, but I love the realistic take on the figures. So I just enjoy making mocks with the realistic version. That's why I like the 212 battle pack is awesome, and having the original or just the clean Phase 2 troopers are awesome, just because they have the realistic look. Whereas the Clone Wars ones just kind of look different, and I don't prefer them as much.
that's what's so weird about the 501st Battle Pack is it's kind of a hodgepodge of
It's like a
like
blend.
Clone Wars elements and realistic elements. I still think it's more in line with the like realistic like design, but it's definitely it's not the just straight up realistic design like from the 212th Battle Pack for sure.
Right.
They got those gray cheek looking things.
I'm fine with the gray cheeks.
Definitely, and
It's just adding. I mean the Phase 1 like movie styles. They're not like as defined, but those have a bit of shading in the cheeks as well. So
Yeah,
actually, I don't have a problem with that.
There we go.
I do love the toe printing though. The toe printing looks awesome. I think that's something that I'd hope to see them do clones.
It is cool that it seems like toe printing is now like a standard. Like it's just something we're gonna get now. Because even like the Utapau
Wait,
airborne trooper has it as well.
Yeah, I noticed that.
they have printed arms? No, right?
No, they do not.
It's no P2 Commander Cody, but better than the old one.
Bro.
We know we're getting Phase 2 Cody in the UCS gunship. I mean,
That's what I put down on the ideas figure selection. I hope they do.
I'm
Oh my god.
like, you know, for those big UCS sets, you gotta have like an exclusive figure of some sort, right? And like, what better one to entice people than the much requested Phase 2 Commander Cody?
I really wish that wasn't the case. I mean, I get it. That's just the age of minifigs that we live in now, but it would have been nice to have just gotten it in the Grievous set.
I would.
Are you just getting tired of collecting every single Star Wars minifigure, Jay? You don't want any more new ones?
No, I mean, it's not even that. It's just like, I don't know. The gunship, I guess, is further away. Like, we've kind of been starved for clones, for especially like named clones, for a while now. So it would just have been nice to just be like, look, like here's your named clone that you wanted. Like, boom, and in a nicely sized set. Like, it'll be cheap, cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Just release another $120 gunship. That'd also be great.
We're gonna get a $300 oversized gunship, because that's the fault.
Exactly.
Looking at you, chat.
Ugh.
All you people have voted for the gunship over my beautiful Nebulon V frigate. And never forgive the LEGO community for that.
Bro, y'all shot yourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Could have gotten Commander Cody in the Grievous Starfighter set.
It's just so humorous to me that all these kids, like these young children, I'm sure, saw, oh my god, UCS gunship, I'm gonna vote for that, and then they're gonna announce, oh yeah, it's $350, and they won't even be able to afford it. Like, we gotta be smart and strategic about these things. Like, the Clone Wars is coming back. I think it was a reasonable assumption to think that we would probably be getting a gunship. That's the most iconic Clone Wars era vehicle. But a UCS one? That ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that it'll be like hopefully a realistic size one. Kind of like Slave 1. Like Slave 1, my eyes, perfect UCS set right there.
I agree.
That's one of the best,
Like
actually.
The problem is the gunship, like the playset one is pretty close to minifigure scale. Hold on.
It's actually, the playset gunship is like slightly bigger than a minifig scale gunship. So if you're doing a UCS one,
I don't.
oh, it's not much, not by much, but like it's slightly bigger than it should be.
So yeah, if this is slightly bigger than minifigure scale, then like if you're doing UCS, you either have to make it bigger because the UCS set's like $200 or more nowadays. And back in the day, they could have done it because they were doing weird stuff like $50 UCS Naboo Starfighters. But nowadays,
It's an amazing set.
And it's a great set. But the UCS sets now, you expect like, you know, a huge 2,000 plus piece, you know, $200, $250, $300 set, which for a, like, you could do a, you know, there's awesome minifig scale gunship mocks out there that would be in like the 2,000 piece range. And I'd be happy if they did that. I just have my doubt that that's what they're gonna do.
Oh no, it's gonna be a big gunship, yeah. I think for sure. I think because I was there was like an article where I guess someone was just like interviewing the designers on the gunship, and they were just talking about how like the UCS gunship presented new challenges because of its size, and that struck me because you've done 3 of them around the same size. So if you were doing it at that size, then it wouldn't be a new design challenge. Like, maybe you would just be making it more detailed. But the way they talked about it, I thought implied, like, it's going to be big.
Yeah, that wording does make it sound big.
It's a $900 gunship.
Oh my god.
They just keep increasing the price of the UCS set.
A construction figure scale gunship.
Okay, here's a question for y'all. Do you think we're going to see a $1,000 Lego set?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and in the next few years, definitely.
It would have to be.
So, like, you have to think. So, like, the Millennium Falcon is the $800 UCS set. It's the biggest set ever made, biggest Star Wars set ever made. But like, the Millennium Falcon is the #1 most iconic ship in Star Wars, right? So, like, it's hard to say. Like, would the next $1,000 one be the next UCS Falcon, you know, in 8 years? Or are they going to do $1,000 something else? Like, it's because it's hard to pinpoint what they would do. Because the Millennium Falcon and the Star Destroyer are the 2 big ones, $800 and $700. And those are like 2 of the most iconic ships. And you can't do a $1,000 X-Wing set. So,
right.
I don't know what big.
They could do like a Tantive
or something.
Honestly, my guess would be like $1,000 Death Star. I think that's one they could probably get away with.
Like bigger than the old they do a display one though, not a play set.
Yeah.
Lego will never make a $1,000 Venator. Just throwing that out there for.
Yeah, no.
That'd be awesome. That'd be pretty awesome.
The Venator is just like. I'm sorry, it's not iconic.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't think people realize. Like, the Star Destroyer is iconic.
The Star Destroyer is iconic.
Is it because it's from the prequels, Jay? Is that why it's not iconic?
No, it's not iconic because it's not iconic. Like, I'd say the gunship in Star Wars is iconic, but the Venator is not.
I wouldn't even say the gunship is iconic. Like, iconic to me is something that, like, your grandparents who saw Star Wars 20 years ago recognize it.
But that's no. That's not fair.
No, iconic is like iconic means it resonates with like a large group of people, like society as a whole. Like, you can never have seen Star Wars before, but you know what the Millennium Falcon is.
So then, is any prequel vehicle iconic?
No.
Neither are the sequel vehicles.
I mean, the sequel vehicles are only iconic because they reuse the same stuff, right? I mean, like, the Millennium Falcon is a sequel vehicle, but it's not iconic because it's in the sequel.
Yeah, but you wouldn't make $1,000 sequel Millennium Falcon, right? If you redid it again.
I think it'd be both.
Yes, sequel sets. I'm not saying that they'll make anything from the sequels. I'm just saying I'm not here defending the sequels. I can go on and on about the sequels, but like I'm just saying, iconic is like a very like there's only a few vehicles from Star Wars I would call iconic.
X-wing, Falcon, Star Destroyer.
X-wing, Falcon, Star Destroyer, Death Star.
Death Star's not really. Death Star's not really. I mean, it's not a ship.
Death Star's not a vehicle, but like it's iconic. Like people that haven't like that. When I think iconic, I think of people that have either never seen Star Wars or seen it like once casual.
I think more people have even heard of the Death Star than like a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, I would put the Death Star over the Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
But they're both recognizable. Like they're iconic imagery.
Yeah.
And, like things from the prequels, like the Venator is not. It's just not. Like, if you showed that... If you showed a picture of a Venator to someone who saw Star Wars when they came out in theaters, they'd be like, oh, it kind of looks like a Star Destroyer. Like, that's what they would say. They don't know it's a Venator-class Republic-era Star Destroyer. They just don't. So, LEGO will never in a million years make a $1,000 one. Now, I'm not saying they won't make a UCS Venator. I think a UCS Venator is possible. But it's going to be like a $200 one. Or, like, honestly, more likely a system scale. Not system scale, but, like... a system set.
It would honestly, it would be kind of pathetic if there were like the UCS Star Destroyer is like a $700 set, but the UCS Venator is like puny and like two to $300. That would honestly.
I think it would be a system set the same way like the Tantive 4 is.
I think if the UCS Star Destroyer that recently came out wasn't $700, I think the prospect of them doing a UCS Venator would probably be more possible. But they've kind of painted themselves into a corner because it's like they've set a standard for what a Star Destroyer-esque UCS set looks like, and I personally just do not see like a $700 Venator being on shelves, and that's the only way you do it. I mean, Venator would honestly, at the scale of the Star Destroyer, it would probably have to be more money just because the design is more intricate with the curves, the colors, the double bridges, the giant engine, like the multiple giant engines on the back, like. The Venator is a more complex design, so it would almost, by definition, have to be more expensive, but they wouldn't do that. Maybe they do it like, it'd be UCS, but like, maybe like a balance, like a middle ground between UCS and system scale. Like maybe $400. But even
like
that...
Something bigger than the old Venator?
Yeah, definitely bigger than the old Venator, but it would feel kind of insulting, I think, to some people... to be like, oh yeah, this is your big, awesome Star Destroyer, but like Venator, meh, like $400, like half the size, whatever. We don't really care.
It'd be awesome if they just kept on making like $200 UCS sets, like the TIE Fighter Slave One, that size.
Yeah.
Because basically all those UCS sets that were like about $200 are pretty nice.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of those are hit or miss. I thought...
Okay, so you got... What are the other $200 ones? You got TIE Fighter, you got Slave 1, Snowspeeder, right?
Y-Wing, X-Wing,
yeah.
A-Wing now.
Actually, some of those weren't that good.
A-Wing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Snowspeeder
the
was definitely a miss.
Sandcrawler wasn't $200, but that was a really nice set.
It was 300.
Was that a UCS?
300.
UCS.
You know,
I think
the
my
best
least
UCS
favorite.
is Battle of Hoth.
I actually like that set.
Did you really?
Bro, we're gonna defend
Relaxed.
the Battle of Hoth set because it's not a bad set. That's the thing.
that's-
It's not a bad set. It's
No, it's just the branding. Like the branding of it is wrong.
But isn't it like
It's nice.
350 or something? It's like insanely.
It was like it was 350, I think.
no, it was 250.
250.
Are
250.
you sure it was only 250?
I'm positive. Garrett and I both bought that set
Okay.
day one in the store. It was 250.
Did you get it for half price?
Yeah, Cloud City is the one that you're thinking of.
Yeah, Cloud City was 350.
Okay, you're right.
That was over.
Why'd they make Cloud City? I mean,
Why did they make Cloud City?
Cloud City is a good idea for a big set like that. It's just, I don't know, it may have not have been executed as well. But like, because the Cloud City, like the original Cloud City Lego set is one that people look back on pretty fondly. So, like a big, you know,
because for some reason all those figures are like 350.
Yeah, no, it's because they're all figures that Lego doesn't do a lot. So like, I mean, like the Lando, the Luke, from that, you know, from Bespin, like haven't been done at all. And there's like lots of great scenes there, but just the idea of that original Lego set, we had like, you know, defense scenes in the movie, doing like a big set kind of based on that, similar to the Death Star, was not a bad idea. I just think that the actual set itself could have been a lot better.
I think the price point was really. I think Lego overestimated how iconic Cloud City is. Like, if you think about it, the original like big Death Star playset was 400, and that was like a hard sell at the time. So Cloud City making one only $50 cheaper, like the Death Star, like we just talked about, is far more iconic than Cloud City. And I think the fact that they tried to, I think honestly kind of handicap themselves in trying to give it like the Cloud City aesthetic, making it round and kind of like making it look like the actual like Cloud City. I don't know, like the shape of it.
They did that.
So the problem though is you limit what you can include in the build because it's round and everything has to fit into like a section of this thing. But also, I think they overestimate how iconic just the imagery of Cloud City is. Like, most people like might recognize Cloud City, but it's not nearly on the level of being iconic as like the Death Star. Like, the Death Star is pretty iconically a big round sphere, but the shape of Cloud City never really mattered because we spend so much more time inside it. I don't know. I thought if they just made it more of like a collection of rooms that you could kind of connect together, I thought that might be more interesting because it's just easier to set the scene that way than like trying to shove everything into a quadrant of this circle, this half sphere.
Shouldn't UCS sets for the most part be like display pieces, not big play sets?
I always disagree with that because there's no inherent reason why it has to be that way. I think a Lego set being like a big Lego set, like something that's not, you know, in the normal wave of things, like, oh, like this is a big special Lego set, I think that's totally fine to give it the UCS banner. Like the original Dropship, for example, is not purely for display. There are play features. It's a play set, but I wouldn't say...
Was that a UCS set technically?
It didn't have UCS branding on it, but I don't think it's wrong for it to be a UCS set. Like, I wouldn't, if it was called a UCS set, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Basically, any Star Wars set that's very big is a UCS set, right?
I think that's just kind of how I look at it. Because there's even display sets that I wouldn't call UCS sets. Like the new helmet builds, like those, they're UCS-esque in terms of the presentation, but I wouldn't call those a UCS sets.
What about like that Naboo Starfighter or whatever the thing was, like just had like those chrome things, but they like didn't they categorize that as UCS?
It was categorized as UCS, yeah. And it almost hurt that set. Real quick, I was gonna say it honestly hurt that set because It's like, because they called it a UCS set, we're like, oh, we can't make it a play set, so we're not going to add an actual cockpit in it, which I thought made the set significantly worse. Like, that set should absolutely have had a cockpit to put a minifig in. Like, imagine making a minifigure scale Lego vehicle, but just omitting the cockpit because we have to call it a UCS set, and like adults don't want to put a minifig in the cockpit. Like, I always thought that was so silly.
It'd be like if you didn't put a cockpit in the Slave 1. Like,
Yeah.
If you're making something at the correct scale, you might as well go all out.
But what were the questions in the chat?
One of them seemed to reply to some of them.
Yeah. Java Lord says, could we get a UCS Gozanti class cruiser from Rebels?
Oh, that's the one that that's we. Oh God. That set did so bad that they would never make a UCS set.
Oh, is that the Rebels? The one that came with Ahsoka?
No. That's an even better set. No, the Gazanti is the one with the 4 TIE fighters on the bottom.
Right. It came with Callus, right? Callus.
Is that the Rebels from the Rebels?
Yeah, from Rebels.
Yeah, Rebels.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's too niche of a set.
Oh, it totally is.
Did they try to make it?
No, I mean that thing would never be a UCS set. You'd be lucky if you ever saw.
Tiny things.
Oh yeah. Now you'd be lucky if you ever saw like another playset Gazanti. Like that thing
we'll
sold.
never get that again.
It sold so poorly. Like we couldn't
Do you guys
give
know
those
the
things
metrics
away.
of sales and from working from Lego? Do you guys know like how sets sell?
I mean, you can just tell by how many people come in and buy them.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Like even if you don't have to be an employee to even go into any store and see what's like cluttering the shelves and like to figure out, oh, like people probably aren't interested in this thing because it's like every other set from this wave is gone because people bought it, but this one is still hanging around because no one wants it.
Go to a Lego store like the week before Christmas and see what's still in stock.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what was not popular.
Exactly. Cult of Christensen says, Rich Boy J, how many 2020 AT-ATs are you going to buy? I'll buy one, because I don't need multiples of an undersized AT-AT, but I do really like that set. We watched, actually, someone was sent it early, and they did a review of it, and we were all watching it earlier, and it's a really good set. Like, I think by far the best AT-AT they've made.
And Veers.
Yes, Veers with the updated helmet, with the goggles,
Yeah,
like,
it looks
molded
cool.
into it. For sure.
Pretty much the
That's
only
one of my favorite
on that
new
set.
Star Wars helmet pieces, just in general. Like out of all the, probably one of my favorite Star Wars helmet pieces in general.
Oh yeah, it's so cool.
It's a
Yeah.
great piece.
And it's not just like a reprint too; it's a mold.
Yeah, it's in sand blue now.
Yeah.
What's up, RoboNut03? But yeah, so I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently it's rumored now that in the U.S. All the sets were pushed back until September, but apparently the 501st Battle Pack might still be coming in August.
That would make it sell even harder because then there wouldn't be other sets to compete with people's money then.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Like the other thing about it though is they promoted that one pretty early, so like anyone who really wanted it has probably been saving for it like more than they had been saving for the other sets.
Yeah, that's true.
The other side of that is like with the quarantine that's been going on, like people are just looking for any new Lego set they can buy that they can actually find on shelves. So I'm just really concerned about the availability of that set. Like, I really hope, even with everything that's been going on, that Lego's been able to produce a decent amount. Because it would be very disappointing if we end up with another, like, Mandalorian Battle Pack situation where it's just impossable to find them.
Yeah. What are you guys gonna do with that set? Like buy it immediately, as soon as it gets on shelves?
I'm hoping I'll be able to find. I mean, it's just going to depend. Like, I guess if the availability, I hope is okay.
There.
It's like a wild Ethan showed up.
Here. Finally. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm at a friend's house in Alabama, so in the corner.
Wow, look at you.
Out my camera, but I am here. So, hello, chat. I do not currently see you, but I'm here there.
We were talking about the 501st Battle Pack.
As you do.
What are your plans for the 501st Battle Pack?
Okay, so look, I was at Target last night because I had to do like an emergency run and grab a charger cable for my brother. So we were on the road. And I was debating. I was like, all right, I low key. I know everyone's waiting on me in the car, but I just want to ask an employee like who doesn't know anything. You know, like maybe someone from the electrical section. Like, hey, can you look in the back for X item?
Okay, I see where this is going.
You know, if I ask one of the toy people, they might be like, oh no, we can't do that. But if this guy goes back there and it's like, oh yeah, I found this here for the 501st Legion Clone Trooper, I could be like, oh yeah, you know, do you have that? And he may or may not bring it out. If he does, great. If he doesn't, then say like, are you sure? Because I've heard that they've come early some places, because I think I did hear that. Then, you know, if he brings one out, he brings one out, and I buy them all up there. But no, in reality, I do intend to get one. And then if I find them on sale elsewhere and stuff, I'll get more. But I don't think I'll spend $60 on 2 of them.
I feel you.
I'm really hoping that they'll go down in price on the aftermarket, like just individual figures. I feel like in the future, if I need 501st, I hope that I can just get cheap 501st. I'm not going to skyrocket back up.
Oh, I don't see. After this set, I don't see it skyrocketing. The old ones.
Yeah, it'll either drop or just stay the same.
There's just like a universal pact everyone can like find through their subconscious of just like we're not going to raise the price of 501st Troopers anymore.
We need to sign the Lego Star Wars Accords where we all agree to sell things at reasonable prices.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need the government to come in and put a price ceiling in.
Yes.
We need regulation in the Lego aftermarket.
Yeah, seriously.
You guys are starting to sound like separatists.
Well, I think with the amount of 501st battle packs that are going to be being bought up, I feel like those figures will not be super expensive.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm hoping that for sure.
The nice thing is also there's so many in the set, like three normal ones and the Jet Trooper in one set. Like the market might just be flooded with them, which would be perfect. Like by all means,
that'd be great.
Everyone, dump
we
your.
might even get like
go ahead.
more of them later on in sets, because I know like the last 501st Trooper, there's only like a couple, right? There's no more than like one in a set, right?
Yeah, it came in 2 sets, and there was one in each set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't bought a new Star Wars Lego set since like earlier this year. So.
Wow. You didn't buy the helmets, bro?
I haven't even seen those in person yet.
Me neither, actually.
But no, I'm not super interested in helmets.
Bro, the helmets are so cool.
Give me my minifigs. I'm looking for.
Pay Hey in the chat says, I'm from Germany. It seems like there are a lot of them available because you can pre-order them literally everywhere for the last 2 weeks and they're still stock. That's good news.
That is good. When are they shipping for you guys in the EU?
August 1st for them for sure.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, the fact on the LEGO website, it doesn't say September 1st for the 501st Battle Pack. It still says coming soon, so I think they're probably going to try to get them out, August 1st, but if they can't, they haven't committed to that date. As disappointed that I am that we have to wait a month for everything else, like being able to get those on time would be really nice.
Yeah. Is that because the Mexico City plant is down?
It was
The
down.
Mexico plant in general?
Yeah, it was down.
Okay. Is that the primary producer of parts for North America?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure is. And then there's like, what, 5 other plants that produce for the rest of the world. So that's why they were... Because then some other plants did close, but there were multiples that serve the same area. So that's why those areas weren't super affected.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every plant closed at least, like, at some point.
Maybe not for an extended period of time.
Yeah. Wow, it's been a while since I've seen anyone reference Nexo Knights.
I know, right?
Yeah.
R.I.P. Nexo Knights, please bring it back. How do we all
Wow.
Nexo Knights?
Garrett, did you buy any Nexo Knight sets?
I actually bought
Oh my god.
just hold on. Some of the battle packs, you know, it was
Why?
they're cool. They kind of like Warhammer characters. So I bought they were on sale. They were on sale for half off, and then that stacked at the time with my employee discounts. I got them for super cheap.
It's hard for us to like bond over not buying the helmets when you out here buying Nexo Knights.
I like they're decently cool minifigures, you know.
Whatever you say.
There's some interesting parts for sure. I just think most of them aren't really compatible with other castle lines, which is kind of unfortunate.
Oh, it totally
For
isn't.
sure not compatible with other castle lines.
It's honestly like unfair to call Nexo Knights like a castle line because it is barely one.
Yeah, it's not definitely.
It was the castle.
Look at what Peter's building. That's a castle. Now go look at the Nexo Knights castle. That was a. Did anyone see that movie Mortal Engines? That's what that was.
I never
saw
saw
the
it.
trailer for it.
It's like a mobile.
Hey, David.
mobile thing. Yeah.
David, you get a haircut? I can't see your head.
Everyone keeps asking if he cut his hair, but just put your hair all to the front so they can see that it's not cut.
It's not
Yeah,
cut, is it? It's not cut. I see it's all pulled back. Yeah.
I'm trying to
Can't
catch
cut the
David's
mane.
hair length.
David, what's the shortest you've ever had your hair?
When he was born, the day he was born,
Yeah, exactly.
and he just was born and then grew his hair out since then.
Yeah, I was born, and then for about half a second I had no hair, and then I just grew this hair.
Started growing hair and never looked back.
Luscious locks. They sprouted.
I don't know, like I'd cut it, but I don't really know what haircut I'd get, and it doesn't bother me too much at the moment. So
Just full bowl cut it. You don't have to worry about your hair ever again, or for a while.
Max Mox says, Jay, what is your opinion on Brickvault's Star Wars mocks? I think they look cool, but I've never built one, so I don't know what they feel like in person. All I know is Brickvault has a pretty amazing AT-AT. Like, whoever built that thing is a pro.
Do they have your AT-ACT on there too? Or the, what is it, ATM shapes on there too?
Oh, no. They just have my AT-AT.
Their Gavin block was insane.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, that
awesome.
was insane.
It's a shame they had to take it down. That's
Oh, he's here, but I don't know if we can hear him.
No, he's been having problems. He's been like in and out on saying
he said his mic doesn't work.
Yeah, I've heard.
I think his phone's charging. So maybe that. See if that working okay.
So I thought I did a good job at like pulling all the parts I needed for this ATST I'm building, and clearly I didn't, because every page I'm like, oh, let me go grab that, let me go grab that, let me go grab that.
That happens to me every time I'm rebuilding an old set. I have to collect or like order pieces to like finish them. If they're broken, I
Yeah.
always miss them.
Whose instructions are you following, Jay?
The guy's name is Another Goal. He actually built this one sitting next to me. This is his version 2.2, And right now I'm building his version 3.0. So I actually plan on converting the old one to this new one, but I wanted to build one and kind of compare them first.
Was the old one the one you used on Vardos?
It was.
That was a sweet walk.
Appreciate that, man. I think I want to have like a total of 3 custom ATSTs in my fleet. So, we'll see.
Displayed Vardos, right?
Say that again?
You never displayed Vardos, right?
Nope. Vardos was during, like, basically right after Brick Fiesta and before the next Brick Fiesta, so I never took it anywhere.
I'm still mad I never got to see it.
Even Garrett never got to see it completed. He was in his self-induced exile by that point.
Sad. You're gonna let us all see Starkiller, right?
Oh yeah. So I plan on hosting what I'm calling Boyo Fiesta later this year when Starkiller gets finished. And I'm inviting a bunch of people down. Like, people are literally going to be coming from out of town too. Like, I know JD Brick Fanatic
That's gonna be amazing.
and Forever Lego Studios is going to come
Love
down.
to see it.
Cults of Christensen is going to come down. I think David's probably going to come down because he was going to come to Brick Fiesta actually. David Hall, not
Really?
not Houston David.
Really?
Yeah, so David Hall.
Wow,
Will,
Matt,
yeah, I'm serious.
Wow. Clone David Hall?
Yeah, bro, like the David Hall.
that'll be lit.
So yeah, it'll be a good time. And Garrett is of course invited, even though he probably won't show up. I'm sure he'll be too busy on some date.
No respect. I get no respect.
Bro, you have to live with it. Like, this is what happens when you leave all of your friends high and dry.
No, I will for sure come see.
You can see Joel's screen now. Joel, can we hear you say something?
I think you can hear me.
There we go.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you. Hey,
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Garrett, you left us when we needed you the most. Like, I've had to live through these dark times of this post Rise of Skywalker world by myself. Where were you?
Cause Rise of Skywalker, I guess. Okay, we can talk about Rise of Skywalker.
Oh God.
No.
Well, if I want to.
Earth.
This movie, I think. Okay, I've always loved Star Wars. Always have.
No.
Like, everyone always has memories of seeing Star Wars for the first time. I don't have that memory because I saw it at such an early age that I don't remember when I first saw it. I was like 4. Always been a part of me. Always loved Star Wars. The prequels, which I don't like anymore, I loved growing up. I still like. I've just brought down my gunship. I love like the sets and Lego sets from the prequels. I still like, and like the sequels. 2015, magical year. It's a great year. Star Wars was back. There was all these new Lego sets, and Star Wars was like kind of real again. It's back into it, and then this movie comes out. This movie called Rise of Skywalker, and it was like, have you guys been in love? Like,
Yes.
and
Well,
then
it blinded you?
and then has that person that you love just broke your heart. You know that feeling. that movie did to me. Like, I'm not like, it was just like I walked into the theater and I was just like, it's like that bargaining phase where you're like, I just wish this could.
Yeah.
Garrett, you were more optimistic about it after the movie than I was.
I know, I actually was. I remember walking out and being like, I didn't hate it. I was just so numb. You know why I was saying things
To
like
me,
that?
there was zero optimism. The second the credits rolled, I sank my face into my hands, like in between my legs, and I was just done.
I
was laughing, actually, for a lot of the movie.
That's the thing, it's hard to care, right? You're just like, oh my gosh.
I didn't get a single flip.
This is what they did to my...
Look how they massacred my boy.
Look how they...
Yeah, they massacred
It's like
my boy.
It's like that girl that you were just like madly in love with, just kind of like was like, I'm moving past you.
It's like when the girl you're madly in love with brings your mentor over to your lava planet to kill you. That's what it's like.
J.J. Abrams turned Star Wars against me.
Don't you turn against me.
Yeah, it just crushed my soul in a way nothing ever has before.
Oh yeah.
It was hard to. I mean, like
Ridiculous.
All the Star Wars crap haunting me now.
They didn't feel like a Star Wars movie at all.
I feel like
Oh, it felt too much like a Star Wars movie.
it felt like a fan film.
Yeah.
It felt like
And they did like nothing in the movie.
This is what happens when you let Reddit direct and write your movie.
What happens when you're too worried about making a movie trying to appeal to what you think is trying to appeal to everybody?
Honestly, I'm not even sure if they were even trying to do that though.
Oh, they totally were. You don't bring back
all of the decisions are terrible.
You don't bring back Palpatine because you want to be creative.
But it's also not because they thought someone else wanted Palpatine to come back.
Oh, they totally did. And there were people I talked to who were excited about that. Like, oh man, like this totally makes sense.
I didn't hear anything about Palpatine coming back except for theories that Snoke might be Palpatine. But there were also equal theories of Snoke being Mace Windu. I mean,
And Jar Jar Binks.
honestly, like, the reason they brought Palpatine back was probably just because they were lazy as frick. It wasn't because they were actually like, oh, this will please them. I mean, they thought, oh, this will be good fan purpose. But I don't think they were trying to pander to a certain audience because someone has requested Palpatine.
I think they totally were. They were just like, it's all about familiarity.
Like the Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, like, I understand that, but I'm just saying I don't think there's a specific audience that was just hyped to get Palpatine back.
Oh, there totally was. Dude, go back, watch the Star Wars Celebration video where, like, Ian McDermott walks out on stage and talks at the end. Like, everyone in there is going nuts. Like,
That's what I'm saying. I agree. I went nuts too, but I'm saying, like, that was after they had already made the decision to bring him back.
then I don't understand how this disagrees with my point.
Like, whenever they originally made the decision to bring him back, there wasn't already a group of people saying, yes, we want Palpatine. Whereas there was already a group of people saying, yes, we want Reylo. I feel like Reylo was pandered to a specific audience, where Palpatine was just like, oh, this will be general fan service that everyone will hopefully enjoy.
I don't understand why one of those is better or worse than the other. Like,
they're both bad. I'm just saying, I don't
it's still pandering.
I don't think they're trying to do it.
They didn't really give Reylo because they came out afterwards and like, no, it was a kiss of friendship.
I love that. I love that.
Gratitude.
Can someone make just a like a Star Wars Wikipedia of Rise of Skywalker Twitter canon? Because it's honestly getting hard to keep up with.
I love
someone with kiss of gratitude.
Like, kiss of gratitude. My first kiss was actually a kiss of gratitude, little known fact. But
right on the
what?
Lip, just like get your kiss of gratitude.
Right on the lips, and then just kind of like a pat on the back.
All right. Was it your high school gym coach?
Good job out there, sport. No, okay.
Go get him, Tiger.
My favorite post Rise of Skywalker tweet was the one about exile. It was like some tweet from some fan site or something. And I was like, did you know? I could probably go find it, but it was like, did you know that on exile, the Sith cultist exiles raised their clone children to be Sith troopers? And it's like, no, of course I didn't know that. Movie.
Believe it or not, that was not in the film.
How was I supposed to know that?
My boy, I made Sith troopers. Why weren't Sith troopers just Palpatine clones?
That would have been cool.
An army of
Can you
Shees.
clone a Jedi? Have we ever found out whether or not you can clone a Jedi? Do we know yet?
I mean, you clearly can clone a Sith.
You guys know, kind of, sort of, but what even was he? We still don't even know.
I think Snoke had clones, but I don't know, man. No, but honestly, okay, imagine this. Imagine, rather than the copy-paste Star Destroyer fleet, all the, like, rebel ships, like, there's, like, 1 million rebel ships fly into Exegol, and, like, Lando's rounded them up, and they're gonna take down the Final Order once and for all, and all of a sudden, they're on the opposite side, there is a fleet of spinning sheaves spiraling right towards them.
That would be fire.
Ah! That honestly would be just the best, like, vehicle addition to Star Wars. Like, if Sheev had a personal craft that had, like, a twirling lightsaber at the front of it, like...
No one could take Star Wars seriously after that.
I mean, I couldn't take Star Wars seriously after watching that scene.
Fair enough.
Even better, the scene...
Let's run on some animals on a ship, right?
I mean, that was fun. No, I'm talking about the scene when I had to witness the Emperor fight with a lightsaber. When I had to witness old man Ian McDiarmid perform the weirdest facial expressions while
episode 3?
Yeah, while awkwardly stabbing at people.
That was so when you rewatch that scene, you can find, because it's obviously a stunt double,
right? Yeah.
Fighting. And so there's some scenes where like they edited on Ian McDiarmid's face onto him, and it looks really off in certain scenes if you're looking for it. Like
with Count Dooku versus Yoda.
The thing with the Count Dooku versus Yoda one is that the camera's like so pulled back a lot of the time, so that it's just CG people fighting each other. But like that specific Emperor versus Mace Windu one, there's like several shots where it looks like a comedy skit where they edit on like someone else's face onto like someone else's body, like you edit your face onto like some super swole guy's body or something, like it's really off. Like it looks
you can pause the Yoda fight and find that too with Dooku's face.
I don't doubt it.
The mistake you're making is assuming we'd ever willingly watch the Yoda and Dooku fight.
Hey, that was such a hype scene.
Better fight than...
Hey, that was... Yoda went ham. That was a cool scene.
And what's his name?
But speaking of which, this is probably a good segue to the moment that everyone has been waiting for. We're apparently going to be debating the sequels versus prequels. So BBP, are you prepared for this?
I mean, I've been ready for, weeks now.
All right.
Dodging me. But
bro, I wasn't ready. Okay. So, like, where do we even begin with this? I feel like I've said so much that maybe I'll just open the floor to you, and then we can just have a dialogue.
What, like, I think's bad about this?
Yeah, can we just start by like poking holes in the sequel?
Well, let's just mention like one, or someone mentioned like 1 point.
Yeah, how about we can go point. We can go point for point. It's just easier to keep the conversation that way.
Are we discussing the Rise of Skywalker, or are we throwing it out entirely because we all agree it's just terrible?
If we can throw it out, I'm fine with that. Like, I'll concede any anti-Rise of Skywalker argument, because they're probably all true.
Throw it out in general, but I'm going to keep it in because it is part of the trilogy, and that affects the other 2 movies.
That's fine. Yeah, if you need to reference it, that's fine. But I won't. If you go on a tangent or a tirade about how terrible it is, you won't receive. You won't get any flack from me.
I think like my first main point is just that the prequels are not really that good. I do think that out of all 3 trilogies, they probably have the best general story. Because, for example, in the original trilogy, Episode 4 was built kind of as a standalone movie, and it wasn't until Episode 5 and 6 that they tried to make an overarching 3-movie plot. Then the sequels have no overarching action at all. They're all over the place. And the prequels, clear plot of all 3 prequels is Anakin's turn to the dark side. Like, that was something that was planned from Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith and the writing stage. That was the goal of the prequels. Whereas the OT was just now discovering its goal by Episode 5, and the sequels never had a goal in mind. So, even as sour as the prequels ended up being, I really appreciate the fact that they actually did try to tell a more cohesive story with a point, and things inside of that story.
Yeah, because they didn't even turn out to sequels and kind of like have like a basis of the story, right? They just kind of like let the directors like do.
Exactly.
No, there was no. So this is. I mean, we can debate this to the day we die because it's not really obvious what the answer is. But I think it depends on who you ask. Like, things were definitely communicated, and like JJ's come out and talked about how The Last Jedi how, one, he really liked the script apparently, and two, it didn't divert from any plan he had. If anything, JJ, at least from my impression, left things pretty open for the next director to kind of work with the things he set up. Which
if JJ came out and was just like, I hated The Last Jedi, he can't do that. Like,
no, sure, but I mean, we still have to.
Like, you can't. He has to say that.
He doesn't have to say. Okay, like there's Hollywood talk, and you know when you're talking about a franchise that you're a part of, it's all mostly positive, and I get you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But like JJ went out of his way to say like, oh, like I love this script so much that I'm jealous I didn't get to write it. Like I think there's levels to it. Like if you're not a huge fan of something, there's ways to talk about it that aren't so overtly positive, I think.
I don't know.
Either way, I mean, whatever. Like we'll never for sure know, but that's fine because honestly, like seeing what JJ came up with, I'll take Rian Johnson's disregard of whatever plan he may or may not have had over what we ended up with. I think the way I look at it, I honestly feel like what ended up happening in 9 was not an original part of the original plan at all. They probably had an idea and saw like how fans were reacting and just decided we'll just go this way. But also, I hate this notion that the prequels are good because they have a cohesive story, because that story wasn't something that the prequels came up with. That story is built into just Star Wars in general. We knew that Darth Vader was going to end up being Darth Vader. That wasn't something new they had to come up with. Like, that's a story that's already been written, and we're just filling in details. So it's hard to give the movies credit for something that they don't even originally come up with. It's just, they're just giving you details of it.
All they had is Anakin becomes Vader. So, I mean, they didn't have to build a lot. You know, there was no concept really of, like, cool Padme stuff. And, I mean, that is true. But the fact that it's still there, I think, does have a lot of credit to it. I don't think it matters whether or not it was created then or created 20 years ago. It's still, that's how the trilogy turned out, is that it has the most plot.
So and that's the thing. I disagree with that too. Look at Episode 1. Episode 1 has to be the most inconsequential Star Wars movie out there because you'd think that, like, oh, the whole point of this is to tell the story of Anakin, but one, we don't meet him until, like, 45 minutes into the movie. He hardly affects the plot at all. Like, everything going on around him is things that he doesn't really understand, and he's not even the main character of the movie. Like, the movie is more about Qui-Gon. So, I mean, was that George Lucas's plan to, like, have a main character in the first movie that is just, like, meaningless in the other two movies? Like, I would say, and if you even go, like, look at the documentaries where George Lucas is starting up the production of the prequels, there's a great clip where he's like, oh, we're filming in a few days, I better finish this script. Like, George Lucas had these stories planned out so much, he thought about it so much, this overarching story, that he couldn't even be bothered to finish the script until a few days before they started filming. And then 3, even though the prequels have an overarching story, I would say in terms of story points, they're all over the place. You're telling me George Lucas from the beginning said, okay, I'll bring in Darth Maul in the first movie, kill him off. I'll bring in Count Dooku at the end of the second movie, kill him off, and at the beginning of the next movie. And also I'll introduce General Grievous at the beginning of the third movie, totally like out of nowhere, and we'll also kill him off. Like, that to me reeks of just throwing villains in just because. Like, those, in terms of the plot points, they're all over the place.
I think the concept of the story is what's important and what I like, but the execution of the concept was terrible. I agree. The prequels are pretty bad. They're definitely bad. Revenge of the Sith, I let slide more. I like Revenge of the Sith personally, but, like, there is a lot of stuff about it that is bad. You know, the execution of the story was terrible, but I think the story at its core, the concept of Palpatine infiltrating the Senate, overthrowing the entire Republic, and creating Darth Vader, and resulting in the death of Padme, and the exiling of Yoda and Obi-Wan, and the destruction of the Jedi, and Mace Windu's death, I think that general story, the concept of that, is phenomenal.
But I think, one, the execution matters, and two, I mean, I have arguments for why I don't think those things are good, but who had a point to make? Someone was talking. I think.
I was just gonna say that like I agree that the prequels, they aren't great, but they're at least executed better than the sequels by far.
Oh, I would say absolutely not. Let's ignore all the Star Wars things, all the nerdy Star Wars things. Let's just talk about basic stuff that might make a movie good. Dialogue, like the actors' performances, and plot. The plot of Episode 1, I consider myself a pretty big Star Wars fan. The plot of Episode 1, even to this day, I still barely understand. It is so convoluted. Palpatine's scheming is just so inconceivable that the movie, by the time it ends, it's like, what did we really accomplish here? Like, what was the point of this? We move on to Episode 2, where I guess there's...
Gungans, though.
Oh yeah, awesome. We move on to Episode 2. Once again, like, what is the point of these movies? Apparently, a big plot point is some old Jedi, like, put in an order for clones. They find that out. That's like a really big deal, and then proceed to do nothing with that information. So I guess that just doesn't matter now. We're just not going to deal with that pretty big plot point. Another point that was pretty important in that movie was, let's find out why this assassin's trying to kill Padme. We don't really know what's going on here. Obi-Wan shows up to the cloning facility where he's tracked this bounty hunter, and he can clearly see that the clones are the bounty hunter, and then later on tracks the bounty hunter to the bad guys, and still can't put 2 and 2 together that maybe something weird is going on with the clones. I guess we'll also just forget about that and not deal with that at all. Like, the story that's being told here is just reeks of not having, like a point to it. Like, there's all these plot points that are introduced that you just find out about, and then the movie just forgets about it. Like, the end of the movie, like Episode 1, kind of culminates with a fight, because I guess all Star Wars movies have to culminate with a fight in the prequels, and it's like it culminates with the most meaningless fights, because like, who is Count Dooku? Like, he's apparently a Sith. Oh, he was a Jedi before? I never saw him before. Does it matter that he was a Jedi? Does he like know any of the other characters? Like all those things they add in, which I think should amount to something, just amount to nothing. And then years later, they rely on the Clone Wars to clean up the mess.
No, I actually agree with you on that point. Like, another thing happened because how they said like Darth Tyrannus kind of ordered clones in the second movie. And
no, he said there was Sifo Dyas.
No, I'm pretty sure they said something about Tyrannus though, in the
Jango Fett.
Jango Fett says a man named Tyrannus recruited me on the fourth moon of Bogdan.
Yeah, but then somewhere in the Clone Wars they say Obi-Wan figures out that Count Dooku's Darth Tyrannus in the Clone Wars, so that's another kind of weird thing because they didn't put that together.
Okay. So that's just
Episode 2. When I watched that as a kid, I was like, oh, so obviously Count Dooku's Darth Tyrannus. We all just kind of acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
Apparently the Jedi didn't realize that.
The Jedi didn't realize anything. So that the plot in itself is just all over the place, and here's honestly one of my biggest issues with it is Palpatine's scheming, because so much of it is written like Palpatine can apparently see into the future, which is clearly not the case. In Episode 1, he wants Padme to sign a treaty, apparently, to make the invasion legal for some reason. I don't really know. I honestly have no idea why this is important, why this is relevant. But that's
for space trade.
Right, but what is this going to? What is the point still? What is he trying to accomplish in this movie? The Nemoidians are answering to him for seemingly no reason. I really still don't understand their relationship at all. Why are they doing his bidding when he just seems to keep getting them into more trouble? I don't really understand that. So then we move on to the next movie, and if we are to believe the foreshadowing in Episode 3 that Anakin potentially was created by the Force by what's the dude's name? The Plagueis. Plagueis and Palpatine could influence the midichlorians to create life. Did Palpatine make Anakin all along? I guess we'll never find out. The movie doesn't care to tell us. You can just sit on that. But if that's the case, then did he just know that Qui-Gon would like show up on Tatooine someday and find the slave boy and like manipulate the deal to win the slave boy? Like all these pieces that supposedly are like part of this overarching scheme just don't make sense altogether.
Maybe Palpatine was just going to come back and get Anakin some way, somehow. It didn't really matter.
It absolutely matters.
Earlier
how is Palpatine supposed to, like, how would that have played out for him? This senator goes and picks up a boy and is like, I'm just going to take you and I'm going to make you my apprentice. Like, how would that work?
I think that, yeah, it's dumb.
Like, his plan is just all over the place.
In the prequel.
Like even in episode 3, I still don't understand like what is his plan at the beginning of episode 3. So clearly him and Dooku like know each other, but I don't think Dooku knows that the Chancellor is the Emperor. I guess Grievous doesn't know that the Chancellor is the Emperor. So does he allow himself to be kidnapped? Does he does he just get kidnapped? And if so, why?
Like get kidnapped intentionally so that he can observe a duel with Count Dooku and Anakin, because that's like the final trial to see if he wants Anakin to be his new apprentice.
But they already fought.
But,
like, what if Dooku if Dooku had like killed him in the second movie? Like, would he have been mad? Like, did he not want Vader all along?
Huh? Realized that Anakin wasn't worth it if Dooku just won.
But Anakin's supposed to be the chosen one, right? Like, Anakin is the key to all of this. We need Anakin. Like, he didn't know that?
But he's like he obviously knew that his final test.
I think that he like knew that Anakin was gonna win, so like him being in that chair was like.
So then why would Dooku not say anything when the Chancellor is like, oh, like, kill him? Because at that point, Anakin doesn't. Say that again?
Maybe Dooku was just dedicated to the cause.
He was so dedicated, he was willing to die for another man to take his place. That doesn't seem like a Sith Lord to me. That's the opposite of what a Sith Lord would do.
Since when was Dooku the best Sith Lord, let's be honest?
I mean, if we take what the movie before told us, like, Dooku's, like, trying to recruit Obi-Wan to supposedly, like, take down the Emperor. Don't even get me started on that. Don't get me started with, like, the fact that Dooku literally tells Obi-Wan, oh, the Sith are behind everything. And then Obi-Wan just proceeds to do nothing with that information. But we know from the last movie that Dooku was trying to recruit Obi-Wan, so like maybe like he clearly has his own like selfish motivations. So like why would he allow like the Emperor to basically play this dude against him? Why wouldn't he be like, oh, like this dude's the Emperor, by the way, like don't murder me. He's actually the one you want to go for. Like he just kind of sits there looking stupidly.
Well, you might have expected like Anakin to not kill him, you know, because that's like the whole Jedi thing. You're not supposed to kill him.
But in the movie, okay, so the movie before, they fight, and Anakin like absolutely tries to kill him. He's like, I'm gonna take him now. And even when they're fighting that time, he's like, I sense great fear in you, but you don't use it. Whatever. Like clearly he didn't suspect Anakin to be like the noblest of Jedis. And even like I don't know, just the way the showdown happens, like. It's just still not clear to me, like where does Dooku fit into this plan? Why was he even there? Why was he a character? I don't know. Can we get rid of all the horribly introduced prequel villains?
Well, they kind of have to have a villain of like, because Dooku was kind of like the face of like the Separatists, I guess, because you know Sidious was kind of like behind the shadows, so they kind of have to have some sort of villain in there, I guess. But
okay. So initially that was the Nemoidians. And, okay, like, it's not a great villain, but it's something. And they're still around. But, like, where exactly did he come... Like everyone complains about Snoke supposedly having no backstory. Like, how did he come into power? Like, how did Dooku get where he was? Like, how did this fallen Jedi, like, find the Sith Lord and train under him, and no one knew about it? And he's also, like, playing right into this guy's plan. Like, there's so many answers that could be given that just aren't.
No, I think it definitely makes more sense than Snoke's situation, though. For sure.
How? How does it make more sense?
Because you know that he was, like, a fallen Jedi, and, like, in the Clone Wars...
No Clone Wars.
Okay.
Try again.
Okay. Well, that's kind of like backing up. So you're just sort of allowing no outside like anything. All it has to be in the prequels. So it's the only.
Yeah, these are the movies that George made. Like, all this information should be in the movies. You should not need a cartoon to clear up the mess that you made.
If you're saying you need information in the movies, then the sequels are like no better.
I mean, I can make arguments for that, but I'm asking you to make those arguments for the prequels. I mean, you don't have to make them if you don't want to. That's fine.
I mean, there's not much. I'm gonna be honest. There's not much explaining in the movies. It's mostly like, I know they do a lot of stuff in the Clone Wars, but there's not much in the movies. So.
The point of this being that like there's so much just missing there. Like, all these villains are just introduced at random. It's not really clear where they fit into this plan. Like, who's trying to work with who? Like, what are these people trying to accomplish? Why are they listening to the Emperor in the first place? That's the thing that really gets me. Like, why are they taking orders from this guy? Like, to them, who is he? Like, what leverage does he have over them to make them do the things he wants them to do? Like, it makes no sense. Like, they're just listening to him for no reason.
Okay, dude, let's take a vote. What's the better third installment of the trilogy? Revenge of the Sith or The Rise of Skywalker?
I hate Rise, but I think it's a better movie than Revenge.
I would disagree with Jalen there. I'll put Revenge.
I say Revenge of the Sith 100%.
Yeah.
I think Revenge of the Sith is more offensive as a Star Wars fan, but I think it's still technically a better film. Like, I think Rise is a more enjoyable film
than Rise of Skywalker for Star Wars fans.
Wait, say that again?
You think that Revenge of the Sith is more offensive towards Star Wars fans?
No. I said Rise. Rise is a more offensive to Star Wars fans. But Revenge, I still think Revenge is a worse film. Like, the acting, trash. The plot, trash. Characters, trash.
Wait. Yeah. Well, the plot of Rise of Skywalker is what exactly again? Isn't the plot?
My boy. I don't know.
No,
I can tell you. No, it's the Emperor sends out a message.
The dagger.
No, see, that's where
the Emperor wants Rey dead, but then he wants her alive because it's the master plan. Then he wants her dead. Then he wants her alive. And then they're looking for the dagger. It's basically an Indiana Jones MacGuffin chase. They're chasing down the dagger. But the thing is, none of them are Indiana Jones. It means we don't care about any of them. We didn't really care about them too much to begin with. Maybe some people did. A lot of people didn't. Also, we don't care about the chase because we don't care about the dagger at all. Finally gets Exegol, Palpatine.
Oh no, C-3PO can't decode the dagger.
Then, yeah, and then that's like a whole other extra plot line. They get to Exegol, Palpatine's alive for like 30 seconds and just like hyper rapes the entire theater and then dies by his own lightning. Like, that is the plot of Episode 9, whereas the plot of Revenge of the Sith, although maybe executed poorly in like the acting and blah blah blah, is Anakin's final turn to the dark side.
But that's the thing. Everyone. Here's what I cannot stand about like the support of prequel arguments that it's all about Anakin's turn to the dark side. The plot is Anakin turns to the dark side. Once again, this isn't something the prequels came up with. This was not a new idea. We knew this was going to happen. That plot is already developed. That plot has already been written. Like, that's the movie just filling in the... No, it matters. No, here's why it matters. It matters because the point of the movies is to show it. So the execution is what matters there. The plot is already built into Star Wars. We already know Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader. So the point of this is, how is it executed? If the execution is bad, then the movies have ultimately failed.
We knew that he was going to turn to the dark side, but we never knew anything about Chancellor Palpatine manipulating him. We never knew anything about the Jedi Order. We never knew anything about Padme. We never knew anything about Obi-Wan's involvement. And I think
yes, we absolutely did. Yes, we did. We knew about all those things except Padme. And Padme and Anakin is probably the worst part of those movies.
We knew like an ounce about Palpatine. We never knew that Palpatine was the Chancellor. Like, that was not a thing. That was something that
well, we didn't. There was no Chancellor. That was the thing. Like, saying we didn't know that Palpatine was the Chancellor doesn't matter in context of the original trilogy because there was no Chancellor. There was no.
the original trilogy, there was not this idea that Palpatine manipulated Anakin and turned him to the dark side. There was this idea that somehow, I guess he did. It wasn't implied to the extent that it occurred in the prequels, at least I think.
I mean, the original trilogy tells us pretty clearly Anakin was seduced by the dark side. He betrayed the Jedi and murdered them. Like, that's...
Don't say anything about Palpatine, though. And that's, like, such basic... Like, there's so many different routes.
I mean, sure, but, like, you can see by their relationship that clearly, like, he's a part of it.
A decent job of creating a plot was interesting enough to do that. Although, like, some of the execution might have been poor, I think that the plot of Revenge of the Sith is better than the plot in The Rise of Skywalker.
I'm saying, if I'm asking you why is the plot of Revenge good, and you say, oh, because it shows Anakin turn to the dark side, that's not enough. Because we knew that was going to happen. Like, how is it when you're talking about... Here's the difference. When you're talking about, like, a sequel versus a prequel, the sequels have the burden of, like, creating new story points. So, like, the story matters and the execution matters. But when you're talking about the prequels, where the story is kind of already built into it, and we're just getting more details filled in, then the execution, I'd say, matters more, because the story isn't something made just for this. The story was already set out for us. We knew where we were going to end up. So how do we get there?
Is like a versus maybe, but I hate it when people bring up the idea of, oh, the sequels are new, therefore they need to come up with new ideas. Like, I really don't care. I know that there are really good writers in the world, so, like, seriously, just find them and hire them, because, you know, I could write a better episode 9, and that's not like, oh, my story's better. But, like, I know there are writers out there who could write better sequels than what they did. Like, more cohesive stories and stuff. Like, they really did a lazy job, and I know they could have done better.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with that.
Like, oh, they had to. Like, of course, they had to come up with something new. But, like, people come up with new stuff all the time.
I'm not letting them off the hook for not coming up with anything new. I'm just saying, when you're writing new stories, you have to also take into account what those stories are, as well as what the execution is. Whereas when the story has already been written for you, then I think more emphasis needs to be put on the execution. So when you say, oh, we show Anakin's turn to the dark side, the execution wasn't good, but this is the story they tell, well, why would I give them credit for that story when that story was already built into Star Wars? It's almost like the movie doesn't matter, because we already knew what was going to happen anyways.
It's true in a sense, but not really, because George Lucas created the original trilogy and he created the prequel trilogy. So he wasn't really handed that plot line. He did come up with that plot line. It was just many years before he actually made the movie. That is his plot line.
Sure, absolutely. But I'm saying that's not... You can't give the prequels as films, as a trilogy, credit because they show Anakin's turn to the dark side, because that was already a part of Star Wars. That wasn't new. That wasn't like this like new unique thing the prequels are adding to the Star Wars universe. That story was already built into Star Wars. How does it happen? That's what's important. My argument is how it happens is atrocious.
I don't know. I think how it happens was pretty decent. I think it was better than Episode 9, the story.
I just don't agree. So here's the thing. Like,
literally just bringing Palpatine back makes Episode 9, in my opinion, pretty much a weird story, just because it doesn't make sense.
I agree. Like it's like I said, the episode 3.
Episode 3 does make sense to some extent. Like, there's some dumb decisions. Like,
I would say there are tons of parts of Episode 3 that don't make sense.
What I'm saying is, it doesn't just like backtrack and defeat the purpose of everything, which is what Palpatine coming back did.
I would say there's like, not to that extent, but there's absolutely backtracking in that movie.
Cheers.
So I'm suggesting that we move it to the sequels now, because we've been like bashing the prequels here. I say we move it to like the sequels, and so.
Ready?
I want to get like what you think about, you know, Rey and how she's like basically handed everything. She never has to really like.
Oh, I've been waiting for this argument.
Train or like, you know.
Okay, so I just have one question. I just have one question. Why is training important in Star Wars? Like, what training have we seen in Star Wars, and what did that do for the character who was training? It doesn't have to be a super lengthy answer. I'm just curious, like, What is?
And personally, I like just the idea of training because the main Jedi characters we have seen, we just know that they have gone through training.
Okay.
Like, Anakin, the time jump 10 years between episode 1 and 2, we know that he's been trained.
But training for what? Like, what does training do?
Just to know how to use the Force, know how to use the lightsaber better. It's like if you're taking a martial art, you're not just instantly a black belt. You need to train.
Okay.
So, there's just that general knowledge. And with Rey, she never explicitly does that. And I feel like, I don't know, they did the time jump thing between episode 8 and 9 to give you kind of a general idea, and I think that might have helped a little bit. I don't know. I feel like if she just beat episode 9 opened with her training under a Force Luke post.
Episode 9 literally opens with her training. Well, I'm sorry.
But I think that if it had opened with Luke and they had a little bit different dialogue, maybe implying the fact that she had been training over the last year and a half or whatever, for Luke, I feel like that just helped a little bit.
So why is that?
Yeah, but
Do we ever after Dagobah, do we ever see Luke train with anyone?
No, but okay, this is what I'm saying. Because
it's supposed to be, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm asking, Luke clearly hadn't been back to Dagobah until the mid of episode.
Became more powerful. For me, the training thing is honestly not as big of a deal. I don't really overly care. It annoys me sometimes, but whatever.
No, but with Luke and Anakin, you can see them progress in their skills throughout the movies. Rey's basically good as soon as she picks up a lightsaber and defeats Kylo.
That is true. He's good from the start, which is
kind of cut off.
Okay. So, did Anakin ever train to fly a Naboo starfighter?
But see, that was already built.
No, listen. No, I'm just go with me. You don't need to. I'm illustrating the point. Just yes or no question. Did he train with a Naboo starfighter?
And neither.
No, don't make a point about Rey. I'm just asking about Anakin. Did Anakin train with a Naboo starfighter?
Okay.
Oh, not specifically.
So then, why did Anakin know how to fly a starfighter?
Because he's a pod racer.
Because he's a good pilot.
Okay, cool. That make that not the same thing. Pod racers on the ground, starfighters in the air. He's also shooting at people. Not exactly the same thing, but you can kind of you can link them together in some way. So
this plot was
what about Rey then?
No, but listen, I'm getting there. Trust me, we're getting there, man. We're on the right track. Okay.
He's strong, of course. You know that he's a good pilot, so
you don't know he's strong in the. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, they'd have the midichlorian test by then. They'd know that he's stronger than Yoda with the Force.
Sure, but is that not then the definition of something being handed to you? Oh, you're powerful because you have midichlorians.
No.
How did Anakin earn? Please tell me, how did Anakin earn his midichlorians?
He didn't need to earn them. That's something that's built into the nature of the Force. Sure, it might be aggravating. You might not want him to be powerful, but that is what was given to him by the plot for that reason. It makes sense that he's powerful because he has strong. To explain that he has powerful Force abilities, whereas Rey just uses them.
Wait. So you're saying it's acceptable for Anakin to be powerful because it's built into the plot. The plot needs him to be powerful, so that's fine. How is that any different than Rey?
Anakin.
Because we already know that Anakin is the chosen one, and we know that he's a good pilot. It makes sense that he could fight shit.
But how do we know, though? That's the point. What about his character lets us know that he does these things? It's not just he just is and we accept it. It's the movie does. Okay, sure. Okay.
Whenever Padme, and he's I heard the deep space pilots talk about them, and I want to be a pilot. He always just talks about. He talks about being a pilot.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool. So no, listen.
She says she's never flown before, so that implies that she's flown ships before.
Literally, but okay, here's part number one.
It's very different than piloting a ship.
That is absolutely true. I don't even need to make that argument. Because before they even take off, Finn's have you flown before? And she says, yes. Nothing this big, but yes, I have flown before. And clearly she knows a lot about the Falcon because she's able to tell Han whose hands it was passed through. She had been on the ship before. Whenever they get on the ship, she tells Finn exactly where to go to get to the gunner seat. She clearly had experience with it. So the movie does enough to explain why she might know how to fly. And I think that's fine. If Anakin can be a 9-year-old boy and the film just tells us he's a good pod racer because he's a good pod racer, I think it's totally acceptable that Rey has experience flying, so she's good at flying. And she's also, coolly adept to the Force, so the Force might actually help her with things like that. But here's the part.
I think the whole pilot thing is equal in both prequels and sequels. I think that they're both fine and built well into the plot.
Sure.
To be good pilots.
So that's a moot point. We can put that aside. But here's the thing that irritates me so much. What does Rey carry around with her 24/7?
Staff.
Why does she carry a staff?
Guess she beats people up with it.
So Rey's probably been in a few.
As an orphan on a rough desert planet.
So Rey's probably. Would you say Rey's probably good at fighting because she had to she has to be?
Using the Force and a lightsaber is
No. Listen, just work with me here. So you're saying she has experience fighting, right?
Yeah, probably so.
So then why would those same skills not translate to a lightsaber?
Okay, yeah, but when you're fighting a Sith Lord who's been trained under Jedi.
One, he's not a Sith Lord. Two, his training ended pretty quickly. Like he's not a Sith Lord.
You're saying he's probably been training under Luke for quite a while and Snoke, so it just seems like personally I would have wanted her to probably lose the first fight. It just would have made more sense. I'm fine with her winning.
No. The initial point of all of this is you were saying, oh, Rey's handed everything. She automatically gets a lightsaber and she's good at it. But if the movie sets up that she literally carries a weapon around with her and she knows how to fight, then is it far-fetched to think she might know how to use a lightsaber and not be a total klutz with it?
Yeah, but like fighting with a stick against like randoms. And
but
it's still fighting though.
What happened to Kylo Ren leading up to that fight?
Oh no, we're getting there. Don't even get me started with that. So here's the thing. Here's the thing I think people are really missing with this fight. One, go watch the fight again. Rey is not holding her own. Throughout the entire fight, she is running away. Kylo is literally on her trail. She taps into the Force and has a triumphant moment. That is literally Luke Skywalker in the first movie. It's not really Anakin set in episode 1, but you could kind of put it up to that. Like, maybe he taps into the Force and the Force is what made him spin, because that was a good trick. So she has her triumphant moment when she taps into the Force. She wasn't an expert lightsaber user. She wasn't like totally defeating Kylo. Like, he wasn't helpless, but she gets pretty much a lucky hit on him after she taps into the Force. That's been established in Star Wars. 2, Garrett brings up the point that yes, Kylo got shot by Chewie's bowcaster before. He's literally bleeding out during the fight. He's not at 100%.
But you can literally see him like smacking his cut to make him like enrage or whatever and go Super Saiyan or something.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's Super Saiyan.
I think he was hurting pretty bad.
Yeah, no, he clearly is. We see what that bowcaster does to literally everyone else in the film. So, like, Kylo's, like, hurting pretty bad. And 3, here's the part that I think people don't understand. Kylo was not trying to kill her. Kylo was not trying to kill her. Kylo's trying to recruit her. So if your expectation from that fight is for her to quote-unquote lose, for Kylo to strike her down, that was never his point. That was never what he was trying to do. Even when they lock blades with each other, he's like, you need a teacher, I can teach you. And then she taps into the Force and ultimately rejects it, and it catches him off guard because he doesn't expect much of her. Like, he knows that she's kind of powerful, but he doesn't fully know her capabilities. So she surprises him probably as much as, like, Padawan Obi-Wan surprised Darth Maul in episode 1. Like, we've seen these things happen to people who follow the dark side. They're so consumed with hubris, they underestimate their opponents and ultimately pay the price for it. The Emperor, I would say, was almost certainly more powerful than Vader, right? Like, he's the master. So to assume, oh, Vader defeated Emperor at the end of that fight, why it happened? The Vader didn't necessarily have to be more powerful, but it's because he got caught off guard. And I think that's totally acceptable. So if your impression from that scene is, oh, Rey's clearly so much more powerful than Kylo because he got a lucky hit on him, then you clearly missed the point of the scene. Because that scene wasn't meant to illustrate that, like, Rey was perfect with a lightsaber, because she clearly wasn't. Look at how she uses it. Like, Rey's running the whole fight. Like, she's not on the offense. She just happens to get a lucky hit on Kylo, the same way that Luke got a lucky hit on Vader. And at that point, Vader gets kind of pissed off and cuts his hand off. But you can't just say Rey's handed everything and she's automatically good at having a lightsaber. When 1, the movie sets up why she might be good with a lightsaber, and 2, she's really not even that good with a lightsaber.
Actually, I think I read somewhere or something that the reason Kylo was bleeding on his side was, I'm pretty sure, to like channel hate, because that it hurt each time he hit the wound.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
The wound, and that made him work. It was anger.
But yeah, I think people totally just misunderstand what's happening during that fight. Because once again, Kylo's not trying to kill her. Like, she just ends up surprising him at the end of the fight, and it's like, oh, like, holy crap, this girl's pretty powerful. Like, he didn't expect that from her, which I think is totally
Why is
fine.
that powerful then? What, like, if she's barely haven't used the Force before?
I mean, that's not how it works, though. You're not powerful. The Force is something that clearly, like, instills itself in certain people for reasons I don't really know of. Like, why is Yoda so powerful in the Force? It just is. Like, if you want to believe the midichlorian example, Yoda just has a bunch of midichlorians because they're there, and you can cross-apply that same example to Rey. Rey's powerful because she's the protagonist, and we want to have a powerful person be the protagonist who, like, finds out how to use that power. She's clearly special in some way, and that's how all Jedi are. Like, I didn't need a reason why Yoda was one of the most wise Jedi. I didn't need a reason why Mace Windu was supposedly, like, one of the most powerful Jedi. I didn't need a reason why Obi-Wan was even one of the most powerful Jedi. The Force just resonated with him, and he trained under the Jedi Order to really hone in on those skills. So, like, the training aspect of that is totally over-glorified. Like, look at the original trilogy. Yoda never even trained Luke with a lightsaber. Where did Luke get his lightsaber skills from? Like, that, it was irrelevant. It literally didn't even matter. So for people to be like, oh, like, Rey is powerful with a lightsaber for no reason, like, you're missing the point of Star Wars, honestly. Like,
I agree.
Like, Luke,
I don't know where this whole idea comes from. I think it's like an extended universe thing that, like, you have to have the Force to wield lightsabers, but, like, General Grievous wielded 4 lightsabers. Right?
and killed Jedi.
And killed Jedi with them.
He was like
He doesn't use the Force, right? Like, General Grievous isn't Force sensitive, right?
Like, the lightsaber part of...
I genuinely don't know, I'm asking. He's not Force sensitive.
No, he's not.
No,
No.
he's not.
And he uses 4 lightsabers fine. So, like, you don't have to have the Force to use it. The lightsaber is just a fancy sword.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
No, but like the Force, like it like enhances your fighting ability though. Like,
I'm sure it does.
It can't, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It's not, if you don't have if you haven't trained under the Jedi with the Force for this many years, then there's no way you could use this thing without looking like a klutz. Like, people put too much emphasis on the Force and lightsabers, which, once again, I think is the reason Yoda didn't train Luke with the lightsaber. Luke's training wasn't about him becoming proficient with a lightsaber. It was about him learning about the Force and what it can do to help him, and really just how to contemplate things as a Jedi. The lightsaber was just a weapon, and, like, if you became more powerful in the Force, like, sure, that would help you along the way, but that's not the only path to becoming a good swordist. Like, Rey clearly had experience fighting people growing up on Jakku. Like, that, the movie sets that up pretty well.
yeah, but like
Wait, I have one
stuff.
question.
He like at least held a lightsaber and like had some experience with like moving it and like using the Force and that sort of stuff before he ever had a fight. And then Rey just picks it up, hasn't had any sort of training or of any sort, never used the Force before, and all of a sudden, she can beat a Sith Lord. That's what.
Okay, 1, Kylo's not a Sith Lord. 2, once again, she had training fighting. Like, she knew how to fight. And 3, once again, go watch the scene. She's not on the offense for, like, 95% of that fight. Like, she's not doing any fancy tricks with it. She's literally, like, stabbing at him, just trying to get lucky. And then by the end, she taps into the Force, like I said, the same way Luke does at the end of A New Hope, and he's able to do something extraordinary. There's all these, what you would assume to be experienced fighter pilots who attempt to take down the Death Star, and they can't do it. And Luke is only able to do it, once again, with no experience flying a starfighter, no experience in a dogfight. He had some flight experience, but he didn't have specific experience, like, dodging lasers. Like, he had never been in that scenario at all. And the same way, like, Rey has a background in fighting, so clearly she's not going to embarrass herself. But if you're coming away from that scene thinking she showed you that she was the most proficient lightsaber duelist, like, it's clearly not the case.
The problem is that they made
Question. It changes the topic a little bit, but for you, Jay, and other sequel guys, I know a lot of people are against Last Jedi Luke, and a lot of sequel defenders, a lot of people are against 15 in particular, and let me finish this whole little, I'm about to say. So a lot of people are mad that Luke throws his lightsaber over his shoulder. Cool fans will say, well, Luke did the exact same thing in Emperor's Throne Room. Okay, obviously, I personally think that's a dumb argument because the whole Emperor's Throne Room scene was a whole different context. You were tossing it away, saying that he was not going to strike Vader down. Like, that was the point of him tossing his lightsaber away. But as a sequel defender, do you use that same argument? Like, oh, he threw it away in the room, thus he can throw it away in Octo. Is that an argument that y'all agree with, or do y'all think that's kind of dumb as well?
I mean, I think that's part of it, but I think people put way too much emphasis on like I can say here, I'll start here to kind of understand your position. What is your problem with him throwing the lightsaber? Is it like you have so much respect for the lightsaber that you shouldn't treat it that way, or like what is the issue there?
Hey, my question actually that's not as big of a deal to me. My question is more of just comparing that lightsaber throw to the lightsaber throw in Return of the Jedi.
I mean, they're done in different contexts, but I think when people use that, they're responding to the idea that like, oh, like Luke wouldn't throw his lightsaber. Luke would respect his lightsaber when, I mean, if he's willing to throw it, throwing the lightsaber was done for different reasons, but it's still throwing the lightsaber. It's still, quote unquote, disrespecting his weapon. So I would say that argument works fine to support that, but I mean, it's not the same thing. Like, it's clearly not.
People are mad at the Last Jedi scene just because he's quote unquote, maybe getting the lightsaber dirty or something. Then, like, yeah, I guess you could compare the two, but otherwise, I do hate it. Or we'll compare those two scenes because I'm just like, it's not.
I think it just depends on where like the other person is coming from. Yeah. I don't know. I still don't understand why people are so triggered over that scene. I thought it was perfectly fitting for him.
I didn't realize people were so mad about it till after.
Yeah, I was like, oh, like I thought honestly, like the scene was more so done like that was him kind of rejecting Rey. It's like she wants him to be this hero that he once was before, and like she kind of has this like this mythological view of Luke, right? Like she literally thought he was a myth in the first movie, and she thinks like, oh, like if I return his weapon to him, he'll be the person I want him to be. And that was kind of him being like, it's like, you don't even understand what this is about. Like, this weapon is such a small part of what I'm going through that the thought that you bringing me this is going to be the key to everything. Like, you clearly just don't understand what's going on. And, like, whatever. Like, no, you don't, like, this is so much more than a lightsaber.
No, it just felt very much so like a gag, especially since Luke was such a serious character at the beginning of The Last Jedi, where he's all depressed and everything. It seems like he should have just dropped the saber instead of tossing it over his shoulder comically.
I thought that I liked the toss because it was more emphatic. Like if he just kind of dropped it, I feel like you'd maybe he seemed more conflicted. But the toss was like a more definite no. Like get this thing out of my sight.
And I feel like he kind of was conflicted slightly, though.
At the beginning of The Last Jedi, he absolutely was not conflicted. Like, Luke was pretty in his ways, and he only agrees to train her because he wants to show her why the Jedi need to end. Luke isn't... I would say Luke's never really conflicted in the movie. Like, he's pretty set in his ways until he talks to Yoda, and Yoda is who ultimately gets him to come around.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know. I still don't understand why the throwing the lightsaber thing is what's like that's like a groundbreaker for people.
Because I think it's not so much just like throwing the lightsaber, just that they've kind of like ruined his whole character. Like the whole, like you were saying, like how like he was heroic and stuff like this, and like why did they completely change his personality, and now he's just sort of a depressed.
Hold up, boyos.
Doesn't care about anybody, just looking around. Like that's not.
All right, take care.
The other movies.
Well, I mean, so why is what they did with him in The Last Jedi, like, why does that ruin his character?
You guys?
Because he was like a heroic person who like saved the galaxy, and now he's just like,
But there was a reason for it, right? He didn't just give up because, like, there was a reason why he became the way he was. Is that not important?
No, but how they just ruined his character. Like,
you're saying they ruined his character because they made him different, but he went through something that made him different. So like they didn't just make him different for the sake of making him different, like for no reason. There was a reason why it happened. So I don't think it's sufficient to just be like they ruined his character because he was this way. Like maybe you can argue the reason wasn't good enough, and I think that's fine. Like that you can make those arguments, but it's not as simple as he's different, so he's ruined. Like I don't think that's fair. Like characters can grow and change and be different. So what? So then here's my question: do you think that Obi-Wan and Yoda are like good heroic characters?
Yep.
So was it not ruining their characters in the prequels when they just kind of decide to go into exile and stop trying to destroy the Sith?
Okay, that's a pretty fair point, but
The funny part about this, I was watching a Star Wars Theory video, and he uses like a clip of Mark Hamill saying like, "Oh, a Jedi would never give up." And it's like, Mark, did you not watch the prequels, dude? Like that's literally what they do. Like they're like, okay, like maybe Vader's kid can help us someday, but we're done. Yoda's literally like, into exile I must go. Okay, why? Why did Yoda have to go into exile? Can someone please explain that to me?
I think Yoda was just like, he was just waiting until, you know, the next person arrived that he needed to train, because like all the Jedi were gone, so he was just waiting.
But he was pretty close to beating Palpatine. Why didn't he just go fight him again?
Exactly. He was willing to risk it all on like Darth Vader's future kid that like maybe he might be able to handle it.
I mean, if Yoda tried to kill him,
But on Yoda, you should have just killed
he
him.
would never been around to, you know, train Luke and make him into like who he was.
Right, but the story didn't have to be written that way. The story didn't have to be written in such a way where Yoda goes to fight him, like is mildly inconvenienced, and then is just like, all right, into exile I must go. Because it makes no sense, because he lost fights before. Like Dooku gets away in episode 2, but Yoda's not like, into exile I must go. I won't try to defeat Dooku anymore.
Well, that's like a completely different situation.
How is it different at all?
What? Yes, it is. Like the whole Jedi are all gone.
Sure, but he's still around. He still can influence things. The fact that he tried once implies that it wasn't a deal breaker that the Jedi weren't around. Why not try again? What was different?
What with Luke?
No. What was different? Like with what would have been different the second time? Like why did he have to go into exile after he was mildly inconvenienced in his fight with the Emperor?
So
If he didn't go in exile,
There were clones when he walks in the room. There's like 2 guards right there. Like, I'm not buying that. Oh, he was so overwhelmed. Like, Yoda could have just like where he fell. Like I don't know. Like went back to wherever the Emperor was. Like I don't know. Like he found his way there the first time. He probably faced some opposition trying to get there.
defeat him by himself.
So that was it. He just didn't think he was powerful enough to defeat him. So that was a reason to just not try.
I mean, he did try.
No, but to give up after he wasn't even bested. He just fell. Like the whole scene just comes off so humorous.
The whole fight, you can tell that Palpatine is like in control, and, like chucking stuff at him.
That didn't necessarily mean he was in control. Like he was just throwing stuff. Like people throw stuff at Yoda all the time. Like
Dog and everything, and like, you know.
I still think that's a weak argument. If someone's supposed to be truly heroic, then the heroic person is going to die trying. The heroic person isn't just going to be like, into exile I must go, and maybe Vader's kid can help us at some point down the line.
Well, they couldn't. If he did, they had to keep Yoda around. You know, they couldn't just kill them off.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Those movies are written in such a way to make Yoda and Obi-Wan not heroic, because they both give up.
I mean, they don't. Yoda doesn't give up. He just waits. He's patient.
Oh my dude! So he was willing to let the entire galaxy go into despair, let countless people be murdered because he was patient.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't sound very heroic to me. I'm sorry.
Around and
That is not heroic. I'm sorry. The point of all of this is to make the argument and say, like, Luke is unheroic because he gave up, but to ignore the other 2 Jedi who also gave up is just wrong. Like, you can't say Yoda and Obi-Wan's characters aren't ruined by 3 if...
Luke gave up. And he just used the same way, like
Whoever's, like, digging through dishes right now is very loud.
I'll turn that off, sorry.
Alright, what were you saying?
I said, Luke gave up, and then he then he refused to train Rey. He gave up completely.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's what's different.
No, but he still gave up. That's the thing. Like, Yoda didn't know for a fact that Luke would be able to take down the Empire someday. He didn't know that.
And then he got back up. That's what happened.
Yoda didn't.
Got back up.
Oh my! He got back up and like what? He literally got back up to run away. He didn't get back up to keep fighting.
Yeah, he got back up
and went and hid like a little B word.
And then waited for the right time for him to ultimately.
The right time for him to what?
He wasn't reluctant to train Luke. He was like, this guy, he's too old, he's too impatient. Like, who's to say that he was like, did he know all along? Was he just messing with Luke?
Did he know for a fact that Luke would even be able to do it? Like, that just, like, I don't find it very heroic to go hide and let someone else solve the problem.
Okay, but like, if the entire Jedi are like, they're dead, okay, and you're like, and you don't stand a chance against, you know, your whole army's turned against you. You know, the most powerful person in the whole galaxy is on the top. You don't stand a chance. You're not gonna win anyways. What's the point of fighting just to die?
Well, but he did. That's the thing. He went to go fight him anyways. If Yoda was just like, you know what,
yeah,
screw it, we'll wait.
He was to fight. He was gonna try to, you know, push. He was being heroic. He was gonna try to, you know, best the Emperor and kind of end it. But then he realized that he wasn't good enough. That's like the difference with Rey. Rey she just wins everything. She never has to fail. You know?
But that's the thing. You're saying if a character, for you to make the argument for Yoda and say he realized he wasn't good enough, which I think is clearly not the implication of the scene. Like, if they had been fighting anywhere that wasn't like on Senate pods, like, that clearly wouldn't have happened. Like, when they fight on level ground, like, Yoda seems to hold his own pretty fine. I'm just not buying that Yoda thought he wasn't good enough, so he's just like, okay, I won't try again. Like, Yoda didn't get hurt at all in that battle. He just fell because of the circumstances. And two, once again, like, that's not heroic. I think a heroic person, if you're saying a character is truly heroic, then that's not going to stop them from giving it another shot. Point being, no, but the further point is that Luke is kind of actually struggling with the same thing. Like, Luke tries to build a Jedi Order, he ends up ultimately, like, building another Vader, and, like, that clearly builds conflict in him, and at that point he's unsure of himself. He doesn't feel the Jedi should even continue, because the last time they tried this, it didn't work, and I'm trying this now, and it's also not working. Maybe it's just time for me to give up.
Yeah, well, that's how they ruined his whole character. He's not heroic.
Then how is it not the same case with Yoda? This is the point you're missing.
I just think the bigger issue here is less that like if whatever Luke is heroic or not heroic, whatever. The point is he has a character arc in The Last Jedi. Like, he ends up, no matter if he's a hero or not a hero at the start, whatever, he's a hero by the end, right? Like, he comes back and he sacrifices himself to save everyone. Like, he has the whole reason why Luke is at like a low point is because they wanted to give him a new arc. And you can disagree or agree with that his arc was sloppy or not. Like, I think it could have been done better. But, like, I think it would have been just boring to have Luke show up and just be a hero. Like, if he's just there and he's just like, oh, hey, Rey, yeah, let's get you trained and then we'll go and fight the bad guys together. Like, I don't, like, if Luke is, like, a real character and he, like, went through things. So I think, you know, saying that he changed and something bad happened to him in 30 years since we've seen him, I don't think is that out of the realm of possibility. So I just don't know why everyone gets so upset about that.
Nah, bro, it ruined his character. But yeah, that's the other side of it. Like, the point of this is for Luke to ultimately become that hero again. Like, you take him through low points to once again to show him, like, what to show what he ultimately can become. Like, just because he ends off in a good place in Jedi doesn't mean that that's where his struggles had to end. Like, it would have been, I think, incredibly a disservice to his character to just assume that, like, oh, like, at the age of 25, Luke has it all figured out, and he's good to go, smooth sailing from here. Built the Jedi Temple, boom, all the Jedi are fixed up, everything's perfect from now on. Like, that's not how life is. Like, life in one hand, like, you think you have things figured out, and then you realize maybe you don't. And I think that's totally fine to just make a character an actual person and give them more to do than just be a static character. Like, for all the people who criticize Rey for supposedly not having enough development and not having enough troubles, like, why is it a problem when Luke goes through things? Like, I think that's totally fine. And once again, and it's done to literally, like, build Luke up and make Luke a better character. The thing that I don't think people understand about The Last Jedi, or at least my interpretation of it, is Last Jedi does way more for Luke's character in the context of the galaxy than literally any other film does. By the end of Return, he's a hero, and people it's kind of a contained thing, right? Like it's ultimately the end of his journey, and he's kind of like, you assume he's going to go off and maybe like train people, whatever, to maybe bring the Jedi back. Who knows? It's kind of left open. Doesn't really matter. But if you look at The Force Awakens, when Rey hears about Luke Skywalker, she's like, oh, I thought he was a myth. Like, the galaxy kind of knows about Luke, but they aren't really sure he did what he really did. But they've heard stories about him. And by the end of The Last Jedi, like, we literally see little kids, like, playing out what he did on Crate, and, like, that inspires them. That the whole point of Luke's sacrifice at the end of that movie was that his importance to the galaxy isn't strictly reduced to, like, what he can do with a lightsaber and, like, what he might be able to do to a fight, but how his heroism and the myth of Luke Skywalker is so important to the galaxy that's a critical point that can influence people to want to join the Resistance, for people to want to stand up and fight against oppression. And I think, like, solidifying Luke as basically a legend in the galaxy does far more for his character than just having him, like, be in a fight. Like, it just...
Okay, well, I don't understand why you're saying it's okay for Luke to give up, and it's not okay for Yoda or Obi-Wan to give up.
No, my point wasn't that it wasn't okay for them. I'm just saying... My point was to illustrate that there is a discrepancy there. When Luke gives up, oh, he's not heroic, oh, you've ruined his character. But when Yoda and Obi-Wan give up, oh, it's totally fine. I don't have a problem with either. I mean, I kind of have a problem with Yoda's just because I don't think it really fits with his character. I think you can have Yoda exit the story with better than him just kind of being mildly inconvenienced in their fight and just being like, all right, I'll go into exile for no reason. I think, here's the thing, Luke had a much better reason for self-exiling than Yoda did. But both of them are okay. Like, that's on the very low end of my like gripes with the prequels. Like, I don't really care. I'm just saying there's a discrepancy there. Like, people are willing to accept Yoda and Obi-Wan giving up, because that's what they did. They gave up. They could have kept fighting, but they didn't. They gave up. But when Luke might have, like, more going on, like, it's like, oh, this is an assassination of his character. Like, I think that's not fair.
All right, well, I'll bring up another point, which is like one of my I just want to see, like, what you think about it, because I just think it's the stupidest thing ever. Like, the whole in episode 8, the whole hyperspace Leia incident. You know, when they're running away.
You think it's?
How they hyperspeed.
You think it's just stupid?
Yeah, I just want to see what you think about that. Because
I think that's a scene that honestly is. I don't know if there's a way to make that scene look not cheesy. So I mean, it doesn't look great, but I like the idea of it. I like that it happened. I would still prefer it being in the film.
But then if it's like, if they can do that, why didn't we see it, you know, anywhere else? If that was a known tactic, why didn't anybody else use it? That's like...
Wait, hold on. Are you talking about the Holdo maneuver or Leia floating back to her ship?
No, I'm talking about both. In like
what other scenario would Leia need to do that?
I'm talking about the hyperspace.
Okay, so you're talking about the Ram, like not Leia, but Holdo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying if they did that there, then why did they ever do it again?
Yeah, like why if that was such a useful tactic to destroy a whole fleet, why didn't everybody else use it?
Okay, sure. Do you remember the scene from Episode 1 when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon like see droidicas and they run at like the speed of light almost to escape them? Yeah. Why do we never see a Jedi do that again? That might have been useful at the end of the movie where Obi-Wan's like behind force fields and needs to like go help his master out, right?
Okay, but that's such a little
little maneuver. Like this is like a big deal, something that can destroy an entire fleet.
You don't think the Jedi running fast is a big deal? You think Yoda could like run really fast to like catch Count Dooku at the end of Episode 2?
Well,
like, you don't think that's useful?
Every single little scene of the duel, it could be going on where you don't see it in the scenes. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Right?
I mean, it clearly didn't, but I mean, fine, because we see the battle from beginning to end. We do not cut away at any point from their fight. Anyways, the point is this. Everything in Star Wars doesn't necessarily have to play out the same way every time. Like, we literally learn that Jedis can move things with their minds. It's always funny when we see two Jedis pull out lightsabers when they can just, like, throw each other around with the Force. Like, Dooku and Obi-Wan are fighting, and then Dooku, like, flings him into a balcony. Like, why doesn't he do that more often? Why not just throw everyone? Why not just, anytime you fight anyone, literally just throw them a mile away and, like, move on about your business? Like, fights don't always have to progress the same way. Like, the argument that, oh, a character does this here, why don't they do this in this other circumstance, just makes movies boring. Like, God forbid we ever see anything new and creative in a movie because, oh, you can just do this again in some other circumstances. Like, look at episode 6, for example. Like, they fly, the one guy, like, kamikazes his A-Wing into the bridge of the Super Star Destroyer and takes the whole thing down. Like, why didn't they just do that? Like, bro, just fly into the bridge, boom, like, the whole Star Destroyer down, good to go. Like, that's just...
That's a little bit different than hyperspeeding into a ship and then the whole fleet is going. It's kind of just like a stupid thing in general.
No, but your argument is that it's super useful, why don't they use it more? I'm saying there's plenty of things that are super useful and they use them all the time, like, the movie just wouldn't be as interesting. Like, that's the point, like... And also, so then, if you really want me to give you reasons why they wouldn't just do that all the time, one, like, no one wants to sacrifice their ship if they don't have to. Like, who wants to commit... It is not in the Rebels' nature to just kamikaze everyone. Like, it's a big ship, and the ships on the other side were pretty, like, specifically oriented behind it to maybe make that more successful. But, like, if you're in, like, a big battle and when there's ships everywhere, like, that might not work out as perfectly as it did in that specific circumstance. And two, like, it's just a cool scene. I don't see the argument where, like, we see something cool and it's like, why don't they do that all the time? Like, because movies just don't work that way. Like, there's plenty of things Jedis could do to make their fights easier, but they don't. And I think that's totally fine. Like, if your argument is always going to be, why aren't they doing this instead of this, then how do we ever progress in film? Like, I'm totally fine with, like, she did, like, a one-off, like, kamikaze maneuver. Like, no one else would even try that. Maybe she doesn't even know if it'll work. Like, I don't know. Like, it was just a last-ditch effort, and, oh, like, wow, that actually worked. I wouldn't try that. I wouldn't blow myself up, but as a desperate attempt, yeah, that kind of works. I think that's totally fine.
I still don't get it. Just because, like, the whole kamikaze thing you're bringing up and, like, the whole ship, like, they couldn't keep doing that. If the hyperspace was a thing, they would have just, sent one ship, bam, everything's dead. If it was, because, like, the kamikaze, that's, like, they would have to waste pilots, to do that, and eventually they'd be out of pilots, so they couldn't keep doing that.
Exactly. So that's why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but the whole hyperspace thing, you just use one person, bam, everything's gone.
Well, I'm so confused. What are you talking about? You're talking about, like, it's two different things, and I'm not sure what are the two different things you're referring to.
Oh yeah, because you were talking about, like, the whole kamikaze thing and how that's any different. That they just could have kept you doing that over and over again, like, just destroy, like, sacrifice themselves to destroy something.
Yeah,
like,
and I said they wouldn't do that.
What?
I said, yeah, and I said they wouldn't do that.
Who wouldn't, like?
I'm just saying, like you probably, kamikaze is not a tactic that the heroes should rely on. That's my argument.
Yeah. Because if they kept doing it, they would have run out of people to eventually, like, keep doing it. So they have to try different stuff. But, like, the whole point of the whole hyperspace thing, they only have to waste one person, and everything's...
But you also had to use, like, a pretty big ship. The Rebels don't just have a million ships to do that with. It's not an endless supply of ships.
Yeah, but but it just doesn't make logical sense that whenever, like the big final space battle in Episode 6, why they wouldn't have done that. It just doesn't.
To the Death Star? You think that would have worked against the Death Star?
It just doesn't. Well, I mean, who knows? It could.
Maybe they didn't think. Oh no. Okay, so here's the thing. There's like three different arguments to this. One, maybe they literally just didn't think of it. Like maybe it would have worked, and they just didn't think of it, which is fine. Like new things can happen, huh?
Just didn't think of it. There's no way someone else hadn't used that before. That was the first time anybody had ever used that.
It might have been like, why not? Like, why does it not? Like, why not?
Because there's so many people and so many other things you want. That's no way that was the only spot where someone was like, if I hyperspace into here, and even the whole thing of going into a ship, it doesn't make any sense that it would send little shards and just destroy everything. It just doesn't make much sense.
I mean, if you're gonna debate the physics and what makes sense, then there are no sounds and explosions in space. So that's a moot point there. Like,
so I'm just saying they could have not made it so they could have done the hyperspace thing even and just gone through the main ship and that's it. But they had to. I think they.
So you're saying it's ruined because she blows up more ships behind? Like, this sounds extremely petty.
They made it too overpowered.
I mean, it's a big ship. Like, yeah, and the other ships were right behind them. Like, yeah, there's gonna be a ripple effect, sure.
It's just too overpowered to not. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense why anybody else wouldn't have used it by then.
I mean, like I said, they might have, they might not have. Like, it's just not a reliable strategy. Like, who wants to kill themselves?
One ship and you get to destroy an entire fleet.
Yeah, but there's also a person behind it, and look at how big that ship was. Like I said, rebels don't have endless ships. Like, they're not. Like, that was literally the biggest ship they had, and she had to destroy it. Like, that's not something they can rely on.
I mean, what if you get to use that to destroy an entire fleet of ships?
I mean, yeah, if they're oriented in the perfect way, perhaps, but still, like.
Well, why is it like? Who knows? Maybe it's not even the big ship. Why can't little ships do it too?
They might be able to, but it's not going to do that. And once again, who wants to who wants to kamikaze themselves? I still think you're missing that point. Like, who would agree to that?
Little robot flying ship that does it. Like,
okay, then you can make that argument about anything. Like, why even have any pilots? Like, why waste any lives? Like, we know that droids can fly ships. Like, just have every droid.
The whole person being a pilot is completely different than just sending a missile into a ship. Like, it's completely different. Like, it's basically just a fast-moving missile. That's all you have to do. Send it through a ship, and damn, the whole fleet's gone.
I mean, sure, but and maybe they might do that. I'm really missing the point. Like, compared to the Death Star, for example, like, the Death Star's pretty freaking powerful. Like, why not just? And I guess they do always use it. So I mean, sure, but like, sometimes they don't. Like, they don't have to. These movies don't have to always progress in like this is the most effective thing we've ever seen. We have to use it all the time. Like, that's just not how Star Wars is. Like I said, like, there's plenty of things Jedis and Sith could do in combat where, every fight could literally just be like, I use the Force to literally snap your legs, and that is the end of the fight. But why go there? Like, I think it's totally acceptable to do new things in fights. And yeah, like, it's OP because it's a giant capital ship going at light speed. But, like, who wants to waste that many resources on something like that? Like,
I mean, you're not really wasting it if you destroy an entire fleet.
You absolutely are wasting it. Like, a ship is still a ship. Like, you don't think they could have used that ship?
100 other ships or something.
It's still a waste of resources when you can blow up another ship and keep your ship. With that logic, then we can just sacrifice anything. Just use our things to blow up their things, and we're good moving forward. Like, there's a cost to everything. I don't know. This just seems very petty. Like I said, like, I don't understand why you're okay with the Jedis being able to run really fast in one scenario, and that doesn't break every Star Wars battle because we know at that point Jedis can run really fast. So why don't they just run really fast in literally any other scenario? Why don't the Jedis, when they're surrounded by the battle droids in the Geonosian arena, just like run out of the arena, like just leave? Like you're fast as hell, like speed through them, but they don't do it. Why? Because that's how movies work.
Well, there's also like an entire massive droid army around. They wouldn't just been able to like speed off and get away.
I mean, they might have been able to if they're running as fast as they did away from the droid, because they absolutely can get away.
Well, in the movie, it only shows that they can speed away for a little bit of time. We don't know. They don't show anything about them constantly running fast. It probably uses a lot of their energy and probably diminishes their force abilities or something.
Sure, it might, but that's the thing. They don't use it at all. Like, that could, like, them running fast could break every Star Wars engagement we see. And if that's the thing, if you're willing to, like, make all those arguments, like, maybe it doesn't, we don't see the full context of it. Like, maybe the Holdo maneuver just doesn't work all the time. Like, maybe it is 1 in a million, like they say in Rise of Skywalker. Like, she got lucky. Like, cool. Like, move forward.
Well, I think that it would be, if that was the case, it would be a lot better if they like specify that. There's like a character was like.
Okay, so why do they need to hold on? Why do they need to specify that was a 1 in a million, but they don't need to specify that Jedis can only run fast for a short amount of time?
Because that's between running fast and going through a ship and destroying it. They just.
It's still the same thing, though. It's still okay, so they don't have to explain that they did explain it, so they actually do that, but that's not something the movie needs to do for it to make sense. Like,
Pretty sure my camera's not on.
yeah, Tanoki Billy says, "Bro, the Force doesn't have a cooldown effect like some video game mechanic." Exactly, like.
No,
it's just
if you use like it's using their energy. They can't constantly be using the force and force fighting. They get worn out. Like with
exactly, and you can't constantly be flying your main capital ships into other ships to win battles.
But you can send a little robot through them and destroy the whole fleet. Like,
I mean, can you? Like, every time hyperspace is a pretty like complex thing. Like, when Han's doing it in the first movie, he's like, this ain't like custom crops. Like, there's complex calculations. Like, the humans are the ones doing hyperspace. Like, the robots don't always do it. I don't know if the robots ever do it in the movies.
In another spot, though, they don't have to be in the ship.
Okay, sure. Like maybe. Like, but that's what I'm saying. That goes back to the whole point of like, it doesn't have to always turn out that way. Like I said, the Jedis can run fast sometimes, and sometimes they can't. Like, it's fine. If you're saying that this breaks Star Wars, then why doesn't every other thing that is super useful in other circumstances not break Star Wars? Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, there has to be reasons why the Jedi can't run fast, so it just has to make sense. But like the Holo maneuver, what we see is how it always works. So why can't they just do that all the time? Why can't they, like I said, why can't they run away all the time? Like,
because they get tired. That's what I just said. They get tired.
And maybe and that's not something the movie sets up. Hold on, that's not something the movie sets up, but that's just a conclusion you're just drawing because you want it to make sense, right?
No, but that's actually like what happens.
That's clearly no. That's not what the movie sets up. The movie does not set that up. Don't lie.
Well, that's actually what happens.
That's not what happens. That's not what happens.
That is what happens.
It's literally not. When do we see them get tired? When do we ever see Jedi get tired?
Luke gets tired and dies in the 9th movie. So
that's in the 8th movie, and that's not even the same thing.
What?
No, I'm saying no.
He uses all of his force powers. You can see it, like all the sweat in his face and how tired he is, and then he dies because it was so strenuous.
No.
If we took it all as literally as that, then all Force user battles would just be them snapping each other's neck, and just whoever could snap it quickest would win.
That's what I said. Like everything doesn't have to always happen the exact same way. Like.
But I
used to think there's this problem with the movie, this problem. But I mean, every single movie has a bajillion issues you can talk about, right? And I don't even know if it's worth talking about them. I'm still
not even sure it's a foregone conclusion that Luke simply gets tired and dies. Like, I think like it's not explicit. Like he died because he did that. Like, he could have just been ready to become one with the Force the same way Obi-Wan did. Like, Obi-Wan seemed to go out on his same terms.
He's like sweating and like all of like.
Yeah, he might be tired from it, but that doesn't.
Yeah,
but
it's
obviously it shows that energy. Use a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to.
Right,
to
but you still might be confusing correlation with causation. But still, that's done after the fact. Like, up until that point, we don't see the Jedi get tired from running fast. Like, you're still that's the Luke stuff is besides the point. You're saying,
But
oh, the Jedi get
like-
tired because that's what happens. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you the Hold on maneuver doesn't work every time. It's 1 in a million. That's just how it works.
Well, this doesn't show that in the movie though.
You
So,
literally are
they show
making
the
my
Luke
you
get
are
off
literally
the
making my
stuff.
argument. You are literally making my argument. I literally just said we don't see the Jedi's get tired in the movie.
Yes, you do, Luke. No,
No. I'm talking about when they run fast. Last Jedi happened after the fact. Last Jedi can do whatever it wants. I'm talking about in these movies.
For that short distance, maybe they don't get tired going for that short.
But you're saying maybe though. You don't know for a fact. The movie does not show this. So I'm telling you, maybe the hold on maneuver doesn't work all the time. It's literally the exact same thing.
But there's no instance of them ever showing that it.
And there's no instance of the Jedi's getting tired from running fast.
But it's,
Tell me, what scene is it?
it's
Tell
the
me, what
same
scene does it
instance where
happen?
they're using
No,
the
tell me
Force and they get
specifically
tired.
what scene it happens. Just tell me.
Do what?
What scene does it happen? When do we see the Jedi get tired from running fast?
We don't see that. But
Exactly.
But we see them getting tired from using the Force.
That doesn't happen until after the fact, and 2, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would happen there.
Are they?
Like,
But are they?
you
are
can't
they
you.
both?
You're using an example from a movie literally made like 20 years after this one. Like that canon still existed the way it was up until this point. So it wasn't like it didn't make sense before.
What? I did not get what you just said.
No, your argument, you're saying, oh, we see Jedis get tired, but like that happened
Yeah.
20 years after the Phantom Menace. So you're saying it didn't make sense up until we saw Luke get tired?
Well, it's explained in the movies.
No, it's those scenes literally have
It doesn't
nothing
matter
to
when
do
it
with
happens,
each other.
It explains.
No. You're saying
You-
no. By your logic, it doesn't make
The
sense.
first movie, you could like watch one movie and be like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," and then the next movie comes out and it makes sense. You can't make the argument that when that first you can't do that because the story's not like finished.
No, but the story was finished. Episode 3
No, it's not.
was the story being finished. George had no plans on making those next movies.
But what do you mean the story? What do you mean the story wasn't finished? There's a whole
When
story
episode
going on.
3 came out, that story was done. You're saying you can't say that because something retroactively has changed that is what ultimately that was the plan all along.
I mean, it was, but it's the whole point is that it was explained.
That's
later
not the
on.
whole. But that's not the.
That's the whole point.
But
You're
it wasn't
saying
done.
that-
No. So by your logic, then it wasn't. It didn't make sense until the Last Jedi. That's what you're saying.
Well, that's irrelevant. It makes sense.
No. But that's the point. You
could say.
But the movies, the original movies, didn't do that work. That's
You
the.
could say you could say that about anything. How it didn't make sense until the next movie. Well, that's just part of the story.
Right, but those movies weren't written in mind with the sequel story. Those movies weren't written with the
doesn't
sequel story
matter.
in
It
mind.
was
It absolutely matters. It's like the whole Clone Wars retcon argument. Like if a trilogy of movies just doesn't make sense, if there are parts of those movies that doesn't make sense, then that is absolutely a fault of those movies, and you can criticize them for that. If later on something happens to make sense out of it, then sure, that's a good thing. But those original movies are still at fault because they didn't do that work. That story wasn't told in those movies.
Okay, well then you're dissing the sequels now too. You're saying that didn't make sense. So
I'm not saying it. No, I'm not saying it didn't make sense. I'm just saying you're using Luke getting tired as evidence for why they might get tired in episode 1. But that scene wasn't written with episode 8 in mind. That explanation wasn't there. And shout out to Colza Christensen for the dono. Appreciate it, homie. Anyway, this is the pettiest of petty arguments. All I'm saying
we
is
got to talking about these little things.
All I'm saying is I don't see how you can be okay with the Jedi running fast and they never do it again. And maybe there are barriers to it. We don't know that. The prequels don't explicitly say why it didn't work.
Okay, but running fast and destroying an entire fleet with one hyperspace jump is completely two different things. Like,
no, it's the same.
Completely two different.
If the argument, no. Your argument is boiling. Your argument literally boils down to we see them do one thing, and it's like, oh, why wouldn't they use that in this other circumstance? That is really the crux of your argument. That is the whole point, right?
You wouldn't wait. Say it again.
The crux of your argument is they do this one thing here. Why wouldn't they do that elsewhere?
Yeah.
Cross-apply that same argument to, like, anything in Star Wars.
But it's completely two different things.
It doesn't matter that it's two different things because that's the point I'm making. No, it literally doesn't. Why does it matter that they're two different things?
Because one is extremely important and, like, completely plot changing, and the other one is just them running fast.
I think Obi-Wan running fast is completely plot changing. If Obi-Wan could have helped Qui-Gon fight Darth Maul at the end of that movie, that literally changes everything. That's plot changing. That's absolutely plot changing.
But like in the instance where it happened, it wasn't plot changing. It was just them running fast on a hallway. And whenever they did
when you introduce okay, so just because you introduce something that in effect isn't plot changing doesn't mean that in other circumstances it wouldn't be. When you introduce that Jedis can run really fast, okay, they ran from the droidicas, don't think much of it. But then in that same movie, you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, Obi-Wan's trapped behind the shield. He's running to try to get through them, but he can't run fast enough to get through the shields. Oh, but he could run fast, like, a few hours ago. That literally is plot changing.
Well, he was...
It's inconsistent.
He was tired from the fight.
Oh my god, okay. Dude. So they weren't tired from before?
You can't just force speed whenever you want.
You don't know that for a fact. You literally don't know that. You're literally just making assumptions about the movie because it fits your argument, but that's not true.
You get tired when you.
No, it's not a thing. No, it's not a thing. If you can't bring up evidence, then it's not a thing. If the movie doesn't show it, it's not a thing.
Look it up. It's a thing. You can look it up.
Why would I need to look at? If you're so sure it's a thing, then you can tell me what it's from.
It's in everything.
Okay. That's a good. Okay, it's in everything. That's fine. Obi-Wan was so tired. Obi-Wan is literally sitting. Obi-Wan's standing behind the shields like he's not even out of breath. He's literally just standing there, and then when the shields go down, he's running fast.
Are you kidding me? It's just in a big lightsaber fight. You can literally see him breathing hard.
Yeah, but they have a cooldown period. They both get trapped behind the shields, and they're both waiting there for like minutes. Like Qui-Gon, they're literally waiting in the shields for so long. Qui-Gon sits on the floor and meditates. You don't think Obi-Wan was also resting? He was still exhausted at that point. He couldn't run fast.
Doesn't, like, if you're running around, a minute break doesn't make you all of a sudden, rejuvenated.
Oh my god, dude.
That's just.
Okay, but clearly he could get enough rest. The point is, the movie doesn't even care to even explain this. Like when they ran fast the first time, they were fighting droids right before that. Like he was swinging his lightsaber around. He wasn't too tired then.
Okay, how about we just say this? Okay, they both weren't explained, so it means that there was problems with both of them. Okay?
My argument isn't a problem. My point is that movies do this literally all the time. There's plenty of things we see Jedis do that might be really useful in another context, but they just don't do it. Once again, the fact that they can literally just move things with their minds. I don't know who came in and said it, but they were like, yeah, like, if Jedis just use the Force every time they fought, like, why wouldn't they just snap each other's necks? Like, boom, problem solved. But the movies don't work that way because that's uninteresting.
The movies, so.
No, one, that literally does not matter. That is irrelevant to the movies.
I don't get your whole thing about it has to be in the movies.
It absolutely has to be in the movies. Movies should not need supplemental material to make sense.
They explain every little thing, so
And you know what that means? That means it doesn't matter. The movie doesn't have to explain why the Jedis don't snap each other's necks because it literally just doesn't matter. That's just how movies work. The point you're making these arguments like, oh, like you're getting hung up on all these small details, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's irrelevant. Like who cares? Like sometimes they do things that make sense, and maybe they might be able to use it in another circumstance, but they don't because movies shouldn't play out the same way. Like lightsaber battles are different and unique. Like we know Vader can literally just choke people. Why does Vader never choke Luke? Oh, because that wouldn't make the fight as interesting.
Okay, well, look, let's just say this, okay? They were both instances, like, of stuff being used when it could have been used, what we were talking about. But, so they were both instances, but the stuff used in the sequels was it was more of a big deal.
No,
so
it's
I'm
not. It's absolutely not.
I'm not saying that that's the stuff in the prequels isn't like, isn't like the same thing. But the whole point is that in the movie they show it and it's like a big,
Spartan Republic says Vader wouldn't choke his own son. WTF? Oh, but he'll cut his hand off. Nice.
Well, yeah, because if you choke your son, that's different. That's killing him. That's not.
No, but I'm saying if the point of if the end of the movie they're fighting and we know Vader can just choke anyone, like why not choke the Emperor? Why not just choke everyone you deal with? Like, boom, problem solved.
They also have the Force, so then they can.
That is the Force. What are you talking about?
Just regular people.
What do you mean they're not just regular people? We see Force users use the Force on other Force users all the time. How many times does Count Dooku throw Anakin and Obi-Wan? Vader also choked Padme. He would choke his wife. He would choke his pregnant wife, but he wouldn't choke his own son. Okay, sure. He'll choke out his pregnant wife with his son in the stomach, and he needs the wife to live, but he won't choke his... Come on, guys. Come on, guys. No, the point of all of this is movies are movies. Like, new things happen, new strategies are come up with, and I think that's totally acceptable. If you get so hung up on, what I'm witnessing would have been super useful in this other circumstance, once again, like, Dooku, when Dooku fights Anakin the first time, he just, like, throws him, and, like, even throws Obi-Wan. Like, why not just throw Anakin? Like, why even fight him with a lightsaber? Just throw him. Throw him out the window. Throw him down the hall. Like, but they don't do that. I'm not sitting there like, oh man, like, this movie is so broken. Why is Count Dooku not using his Force powers effectively? We saw him throw Obi-Wan a few minutes ago in the scene, but why isn't he throwing him now? Like, it would really benefit him to be throwing Anakin now. But no, like, movies don't have to work that way. So to get hung up on the holo maneuver and say, why don't they freaking use this all the time? Well, one, there's reasons why they wouldn't. But even if those reasons don't exist, movies just don't have to work that way. Like, there are different strategies, there are different things that people try to do in movies to make them different, to make them unique. We don't want every battle to just devolve into the exact same thing. And once again, cross-apply the argument for episode 6, when they just fly. They learned they can fly a tiny A-Wing into the bridge of a Super Star Destroyer, and boom, that ship is done. They never did that again. The movies aren't broken because of that. It's just how movies work.
Well, that's explained in, like, Rogue One, how he put the hole in there for them to do that.
No, I said they fly a tiny A-Wing into the bridge of a Super Star Destroyer.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was thinking about something else.
But no, that's what I'm saying. Like, we literally see the movies are filled with things like this. Like, watch the freaking Mandalorian. The dude has a gun that can just vaporize people. But, like, he still has more interesting fights than that. He doesn't just vaporize everybody, because that's not interesting. Like, and that's fine. Like, you don't think like I said, like, the Mandalorian's vaporizing gun, like, that's not problematic? Could you imagine if every clone had that? Could you imagine if anyone else had that? Like, pull up on Snoke, boom, vaporize, moving forward. Like, no one complains about that, though. That's because that's just how movies are. That's how, like, if you want to see new things, like, you're gonna have to accept the fact that things don't have to, like, different things are going to happen, and that's fine.
That doesn't make it any less stupid, but, like, I get what you're saying, but it doesn't make it any less stupid.
But it does. That's just how movies are. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, if you like,
they could have done something else besides that.
Sure, but you're getting hung up on it and saying, like, the movie is terrible because of that. But this isn't it's not unique to The Last Jedi. It happens literally all the time. Like, it's just one of those things when you walk into a movie, you just have to accept. Like, if I want to see something new, like, things aren't always going to play out in the most logical way with them doing the things that we see them do that might work in one circumstance and doesn't work in the other circumstance. Galaxy Lord says they wouldn't sacrifice another pilot. Okay, then get a droid to do it. Since apparently it's that simple. Just get a droid to do it. Have the droid fly into the thing. Disable the shields, go after the shields, boom, then take down an entire Star Destroyer.
Why would they do that when they can just hyperspeed into one ship and destroy the entire fleet with one? So.
I mean, okay, your
okay,
assumption that you can destroy the entire fleet from that is wrong. Every ship just the reason that worked for that circumstance was every ship was behind each other. 2, you wouldn't want to sacrifice a giant ship to do that. Like I said, if it's a battle like the Battle of Coruscant, for example, like how would you pull that off? Like your own ships are also intertwined in there. Like that's not just a save all to every galactic engagement. But that's the thing, like your argument saying, oh, why wouldn't they just hyperspace through it? That's literally the exact same argument. Why wouldn't they just disable the Star Destroyer shields and take it out with a tiny A-wing? Boom. Whole entire capital ship taken down. Moving on. It's just not how movies are, man. Vader wastes his time.
Star Wars.
Vader wastes his time walking through the hallway, cutting down all the rebels. Just choke them all out, bro. Like, why? just choke them all out. Use the Force.
He did choke.
No, I'm saying choke them all out. Like, don't even waste time. Like, honestly, like, okay, here's the funny thing about it. Vader has the Force. He's in a hallway with like a dude running from him with like the thing he wants. You don't think he can just use the Force to stop that guy? Oh my God, Row 1's broken. No, like, movies can be interesting. That's totally fine. Or I guess Vader could have just hyperspace. They could have like a hyperspace through the Tantive 4. Shout out to Dozzle Guy for the £5 dono. He says it's more a fantasy film than sci-fi, so there's literally no point in analyzing every single scientific thing. Exactly. You do that with Star Wars, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have a hard time. Garrett, I want you to write me an essay on why there's sound in space. I need an explanation.
Jalen, what mock are you gonna build after Starkiller?
Bro, that's just come on. I can't just spill that tea. No, it's a surprise. You guys will find out.
And how much longer until you think you're done with Starkiller?
I wish I had an answer to that. That's a good question for another time. I don't know. I'm aiming for like October. That'd be great. We'll see. It's a big mock, man.
If BRICKFIESTA was happening, would you just bring it in complete, or would you just try to finish it like very?
I would have just had to bring it in complete. I would have just brought what I had. That's what I did last year. It was nowhere near complete last year, but I still took what I had. Yeah, shout out to Count Dooku for following the street code. Count Dooku didn't want to go out like Tekashi 6ix9ine. That's why he didn't snitch on Palpatine. Say it again?
How many base plates is it?
Right now, or how much will it be when it's done?
In total, like when you're done.
I'm honestly not sure, so I always have to think about this. So I know it's 5 gray base plates wide, and it might end up being like 20 gray base plates long. That's my rough estimate. Oh, Garrett, so actually someone brought up a really like perfect argument for the bombs, because this is honestly like a goofy debate that people have. So here's the thing, like, there's gravity in the ship, right? There just is. We know that. Like, we see Paige fall. There's gravity. So if the bombs are in the ship and you let them fall in the ship, they're going to fall because there's gravity in the ship. So if they're exiting the ship and there's no external force acting on them, then they're just going to continue that trajectory and go whatever direction they fell in. Boom. I've saved the last Jedi. There can be peace now.
It was just a stupid tactic, though. Like, why would they do that?
Why would they use...
Because it's a cool scene with bombs. I mean, I just, like, whatever. They made bombers that look like World War II bombers, because Star Wars is World War II in space, and the ships look cool, and so they had to bomb. They set up a scene where, hey, we gotta get ships from here to bomb thing. As a viewer, clear, got it. Ships gotta get bomb thing. Ships get blown up, but they get some bombs off, they blow up ship. Scene done. Oh, that was a cool space battle.
It was cool.
Moving
It just
on.
didn't make any sense. It just didn't make any sense.
How does that not make any sense?
Dude, they have like, I don't know how many, they have like 5 or 10 bombers. They're just going like super slowly.
Because there needs to be tension in the scene.
One time I tied
If they just zipped over there and bombed it,
it goes the 2 pieces and destroys 2 bombers. Just one TIE fighter being blown up.
Yeah, that sucked. Man, that's a bummer that happened. It was unlucky.
Oh, it's so
stupid tactics.
Wait, so, hold on. Stupid. How is it a stupid tactic?
Because there's slow bombers moving and like extremely slowly towards massive ships with tons of fighters that can easily blow them up.
That's why they had the X-wings go ahead and like take out the TIE fighters.
Well, they're clearly they didn't get all of them because TIE fighter came, exploded, and blew up too.
So why did it have to be perfect? Why does the scene have to progress in such a way where they're victorious? Like it's totally fun. Like they tried it didn't work out well.
They could have just used a fast ship and dropped bombs. Why didn't?
Maybe that's the trade-off.
Maybe fast ships can't carry the strong enough bombs they need to blow up a dreadnought.
Exactly.
Who cares? Like when you get into these debates, it's just like who cares? Like who cares, right? The goal of the scene was we have slow bombers to bomb ship. We need to get them there. Poe says we're going to go there to do that, but the people back on the ship are saying no, Poe, let's just leave. So Poe does that. They blow up the ship, but he gets all the bombers blown up, which leads into the conflict later in the movie. When Holdo doesn't tell Poe her plan because she thinks he's reckless, because we just saw he was reckless. That was the point of the scene. The point of the scene was not to analyze the science of bombing in space.
Nah, bro.
Who cares?
We also needed an explanation for why the Death Star had a hole in it. We needed a movie about that.
We have to make a whole movie.
Because why would that hole be there? Oh my god.
There's no other explanation.
They
explained it. The whole in episode 4. There's an exhaust port right here. Okay.
Blow it up.
Like, why do we have to go further than that? The whole point of the whole point of that in episode 4 was that our hero had something to shoot at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Who cares why it's there? That doesn't make the scene any less. Like, everyone loves that final scene in episode 4, right? I hope. Are we about to get in an argument about how that doesn't make any sense?
No, bro. It was stupid.
Okay. So he shoots a proton torpedo into the hole because that's what our hero needs to do to win the day. The other guy tried. He tried to use his computer and it failed. Computer's not working. Luke relies on the Force, shoots it down the hole, Death Star blows up. Movie done. Hero wins. We don't need, like, oh, well, why would the Empire build a hole in their Death Star that leads to the reactor to blow it up? Who cares? They wrote that in the script because that's how the movie needed to work.
Nah, bro.
Hey, we got BRICKFIESTA in the chat.
Hey, what's up, Matt? So here's the thing. Like, these arguments irritate me on 2 levels. One, like, I share Garrett's frustration. It literally just doesn't matter. But 2, people seem to make these arguments exclusively about the sequels for some reason. It's like we weren't concerned about technology until the sequels came around, and all of a sudden, oh, like, I'm sure that's not how that works. And I'm like, why? Like, who cares? We never cared about this. We never cared.
How do all the ships have gravity? Like,
we
need to learn how that works.
Okay,
they have gravity because they're filming on a real set on real life. So, like, and it's not meant to be that scientific. Okay,
I get the whole, like, there's no point debating, but it's just, like, kind of fun to just kind of...
I mean, I think it's fun, but, like, when people levy such criticism... Like, I don't criticize the prequels for, like, things like that. Like little plot holes and stuff like that, because I don't care. Like, to me, Star Wars is honestly, like, bottom-tier entertainment. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad, but, like, if you want to watch, like, a good movie to make you, like, feel things, there's, like, a lot better options out there. Star Wars is, like, good, solid entertainment.
You mean, like, pornography?
No, like, what? No, I'm saying, like, you watch, like, an Oscar-winning movie or something, or if you want, like, a tight plot.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Or, like, hardcore sci-fi if you want to see, like, accurate ship-to-ship combat. Like, go watch, like, The Expanse, sci-fi TV show, and they have some ship-to-ship battles that are handled in a realistic way. Spoilers, it's not nearly as exciting as a Star Wars battle, because Star Wars battle is just a fantasy battle. You can just do whatever you want. So, like, I just, like, when I look at these movies, I'm looking to be entertained by, like, solid characters that I root for to overcome evil in some way, you know, be it clever or fun or exciting or whatever. So it's just like, I don't know why we have to get so hung up on all these, like, well, why don't they do the Holdo maneuver all the time? Why doesn't the Empire just build 10 Death Stars? Why does a Super Star Destroyer blow up just because an A-Wing hits the bridge? All these things happen because they wrote the script that way. And you can fault the script. Like the prequels, like that same argument, right? Like, why does this thing happen in the prequels? Well, the script wrote it that way. And you'd be like, well, the script is weak. Why did things happen in Episode 9 the way they happen? Well, the script is weak. But like in general, all these little minor details, like I just don't think they just don't matter. Like who cares?
We need a movie called Bomber, a Star Wars story, where they show
Explain the bomb.
they explain like why they had to be that specific speed and like the technology behind the bombs.
They'll cover that in Rogue 2.
Rogue 2, a technology story.
But it's like, yeah,
the problem is, like, why didn't, I mean, I guess we had this, but it seems to have, like, super ramped up with the sequels. Like, no one was concerned about space physics in the other movies. I don't know, maybe they were.
They probably
Yeah, well, those aren't. That's like a minor problem with the sequels, first of all. But like, I'm not getting into that now.
I just don't see it as a problem. It's just like there's a thing
well,
called.
It's our problem with the sequels. Then we can. It's a problem with all movies, or it's just it's just a thing that happens in movies. But it doesn't.
I think when you walk into a movie, you just
same as the prequels, just that.
You just have to accept like certain things just have to play out. Like why does this grand story happen in 2 hours? Because that's how long they have to tell the movie. Like it just is what it is, man. Django Brick says before it was more civil. That's spoken like a true person who wasn't old enough to have lived through like the early 2000s and experienced the people's like genuine reactions to the prequels.
If the prequels came out like now, let's say like all of Star Wars is like moved ahead by 20 years, like we would be experiencing like the same kind of arguments. You have like people that are nostalgic about something that don't like what's new, and then like you have all these petty arguments about like, oh well, the prequels, like, so here's like a petty argument that people that don't like the prequels use, which I just don't care about. Like, oh, why does everyone forget about the Jedi? Only 18 years after like the Clone Wars ends, which was a massive galaxy-spanning conflict. Right?
You mean
like,
the sequels?
Plot hole, right?
You mean the sequels?
I'm saying like if the prequels came out now, people would argue these points.
Like who forgot about the Jedi? I'm just confused.
People in the original trilogy. They're like, the Jedi aren't around.
Oh yeah, you're the last of. Okay, yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, Han just doesn't believe they existed.
I'm saying it's a minor plot hole that people that don't like the prequels bring up, and I like don't care. Like they don't talk about the Jedi because Luke needs to be the last one. I don't care that it was only 18 years ago and it doesn't make sense for everyone to just have to move past it. Like Tarkin says that, oh, you're all that's left of their ancient religion. This ancient religion that died out
17 years ago.
18 years ago. Like, I mean, like, who cares? It just doesn't matter.
It's just, I don't know, like, it's just a dumb, like George probably could have made the prequel. I don't know, like, yeah.
Oh yeah, here's another. Someone brings up the blockade in Episode 1. Like, how come, like, they run that blockade?
And then it's not there on the way back.
And then, why is a planetary blockade just like one ring around a planet? Couldn't you just launch, like, take off in atmosphere, go around to like the North Pole of your planet, and then just go up that way?
And then go through the planet core.
Go through
the planet core. Yeah, who cares? I don't know. My issues.
The timeline is set up, but like the way these movies worked, the end of Episode 3 to the beginning of Episode 4 is 18 years, which is not that long. But like it acts like it's a much longer time. But like I said, I don't care. You could nitpick that, right? You could nitpick, oh, Obi-Wan is way too old. He shouldn't be this old. Or like people should be remembering the Jedi more, or whatever. The Clone Wars should be a bigger deal in the original. Blah 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 blah. Like. It doesn't matter to me. Like, who cares? I wouldn't, like, it's like, I'm not gonna nitpick, like, the prequels for issues like that, the same way I don't nitpick the original trilogy.
Yeah, no, there are much better prequel arguments you can make. Like, why is it boring?
Boring!
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're boring and the actors were terrible. Like, that's a much better reason to not like a movie.
Exactly. Nah, bro, but the bombers.
Bombed too good.
Why can the bombs fall? Someone explain to me why I'm literally crying in the theater right now. George Lucas didn't write Star Wars for you to be deploying bombs.
Is Force Lightning hereditary? Is that what Episode 9?
I think so, man. But
So,
but Dooku, it's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Dooku had kids that could do it.
Yeah.
It's like It's like maybe Dooku's secretly a Palpatine.
He probably was. Because you can only like be powerful in the Force if you're related to someone else.
Exactly. Bluebrick says, shaking and crying, those dang bombs.
I think I'm gonna head out.
Alright, see ya, dude.
Alright, see ya.
How the heck is this supposed to
Alright, see ya.
See you then.
Adios, man.
I'm gonna get off as well now. Starving.
Django says, Force Lightning is a dark side power, though, so how did Rey have it? That is our exact question.
People.
See you, David.
That is exactly what we're trying to figure out. I don't know. Garrett, let's
it's hereditary. That's
let's
what
make
Episode 9 is
sense
saying.
of Force Lightning.
Okay, so let's talk about the history of Force Lightning. So originally, it was probably just called Evil Space Lightning in the script. Like, they're writing Episode 6, and they're like, hey,
we don't want the Emperor to pull out a lightsaber, because that's stupid. So, like, what
the Emperor's not going to pull out a lightsaber because that's the weapon of a Jedi. Vader's wielding one because he used to be a Jedi.
Yep.
So the Emperor is going to use something really awesome against Luke, some kind of evil space magic. What effects we got? Look, what's industrial light and sound or whatever. They're like, hey, we work on this thing. Looks like lightning. Oh, that's cool. It's kind of like magic or something. So Palpatine zaps Luke with that. Now, watching that scene, you could kind of assume that that's not the only trick up the Emperor's sleeve, right? Like, it's like just very little effort. He's just zapping Luke. Because, like, he's just toying with him. He's much more powerful than Luke.
Oh, yeah.
So he's just
He wanted to make him suffer.
Zippity zap. You can zap him with his lightning. So, but, like, the Emperor could probably have just lifted Luke up with the Force and ripped him into 30,000 pieces. Like, right? Like, I mean, that's how I see that scene. So anyway, that ends.
Nah, bro, because that conflicts with Force Rule number 32.
Well, so this is the original trilogy. We haven't ruined the Force yet. and then the prequels come out, and like Episode 1, they rightly don't have Darth Maul do Force lightning because Darth Maul is using a lightsaber. So you're like, oh, he's being trained with a lightsaber to fight Jedi. Maybe he started training early on as a Jedi or something. I don't know. It just leads to questions, right? But whatever. The point is, Darth Maul's doesn't use Force lightning. Then they're like, Episode 2 comes around, and they have a new Sith Lord, and they're like, hey, what did our other Sith Lord do? He used Force lightning. Now, should we have our new Sith Lord, who's not like Darth Maul was just kind of like an assassin, right? So that's why he didn't do anything fancy with the Force. He just moved stuff around. But his main gimmick was his double-bladed lightsaber. So everything fit around that. But Count Dooku's a full-blown Sith Lord, right? So he's like a super trained. He used to be like a super trained Jedi, so he's obviously really good with the sword. But let's give him a cool Force thing to do. So instead of sitting down and going like, man, we could make him like summon like a storm or something, or like turn like rocks into lava or something. Like, I don't know, we could do all sorts of crazy things. Or we could just make him shoot lightning, because that's what the other Sith Lord did.
Alright, moving along.
So now at that point, lightning is just that's just a Sith power now. And if you're born from a Sith, you have it. It's just part of being a Sith, I guess. And that's it, though. That's your only trick as a Sith. You can choke people, I guess, but Jedi can do that too.
Yeah, why? Could you imagine if Palpatine just sat there and choked Luke? Why didn't he just choke him? Just choke him out.
It would have been boring, so they made him do lightning.
Nah, fam. Star Wars is exhausting. Building custom ATSTs is also exhausting because I'm missing so many pieces. I don't know why. What's up, Bricks Films? How you doing, dude?
Man, I wasn't even really a part of that debate, and that was exhausting.
I don't know, man. Movies. This is. I think this kind of brings up the further point about like every Star Wars fans in general nowadays just kind of take for granted that there's a book, comic, movie, like Wikipedia page about everything, and that becomes the expectation from the films. And it was never that way. Like, George would have never wanted to, like, cripple his storytelling. Well, I mean, he kind of did with midichlorians, but he, like, in general, he never would have wanted to, like, cripple his storytelling by, like, making finite rules about what people can and cannot do and just limiting it to that. Like, just making a book, like, here's a list of force powers that Jedis can do, and this is it. Like, you write the story in service of the characters, and if you need them to do something new, like, it should fit in the context of the galaxy, sure, but, like, just go for it, do it, you know, like...
Yeah, like, obviously you want it to fit in the confines of, like, your universe you're making, and that's, like, you know, but, like, when you're dealing with a concept like the Force, which is basically just magic, like, that's where you can really let your imagination kind of run wild. And so, like, in the original trilogy, we're constantly introduced to new, like, Force ideas, right? Like, I mean, so in episode 4, you're just kind of introduced to it. Obi-Wan uses the Force and, like, becomes a ghost or whatever, and you're like, whoa, what was that? That's crazy. And he became one with the Force, so he could interact with Luke, you know, after death. And then, like, Luke uses the Force to, you know, to, like, heighten his ability to shoot the missile at the right time. So, okay, so the Force, and, like, Obi-Wan talks about the Force and stuff being magic. And then the next one, you learn new things, like, oh, you can, like, move things with your mind, like, you know, like, Luke moves the rocks and he pulls his lightsaber, and, like, Yoda lifts a whole X-Wing out, so then at this point you're like, wow, like, there's really, like, no limit to what you can do with the Force. And then, you know, like, so, like, the movies consistently just added more and more to it. And then the prequels, like, didn't do anything. They didn't, like, add anything new, really, besides the one time they ran really fast. But, like, I see that more of, like, a mistake than, like, an actual power. That was, like, if that was, like, a real Jedi power, I feel like that would have been used again.
Yeah, maybe the scene was just accidentally sped up in post, and they just kind of left it in there, you know, like, whoever was...
It's so lazy, that scene. I mean, if you can point to one scene in the prequels of just how lazy it was, that is the scene.
Master Destroyers, speed run.
Because it was like, how do we get them out of this situation? Well, they'll just run really fast and get out of it. Which is fine. That would have been... Because that was early on in the movie, right? So you could have had them do that, and you're like, oh, new Jedi power. But then if you don't consistently show them, like, utilizing that later on, it's just weird.
Nah, bro, it's because they were too tired later on.
Well, you know, I mean, I guess. It's like, I mean, there's just no defending it.
Shout out to Bricks Films for the 99 dono. He says, pretty late to the stream, but better late than never. Appreciate that, dude. Thank you so much.
Palpatine's Force screech.
Is that really... Okay, hold on. Is that actually a Force screech?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so.
I'm sure later on, Extended Universe and other crap, like, added in, like, that some kind of Sith ability, and that's why he killed the Jedi so fast, but, like, no. He just yelled because he's a monster, man. I mean, how is that some kind of power?
Bro, it's Force screech. Because it's a power because all the other Jedis just stand around so stupidly and don't even bother to swing at him, so...
They were clouded by...
They were confused.
Ability to use the Force was clouded.
That's my favorite plot device in all of Star Wars. How do we just get our characters to not be able to comprehend anything? Oh, the dark side is clouding their vision.
Okay, so someone in the chat, so Tanuki Billy says, to be fair, you can argue that the reason there's no new Force abilities in the prequels is because the Jedi Order has stagnated and their power is diminishing. That doesn't make any sense.
That literally doesn't make sense.
You're saying that they can't develop new Force powers, but the Jedi have been around for thousands of years, right? I mean, are we saying that the only thing that Jedi Force users can do is push things, pull things, choke people,
mind trick,
and mind trick? Like, that's it.
That's it.
That's one thing I give the sequels credit for. Like, the sequels are super unoriginal in a lot of other ways, but the way they use the Force is a lot more imaginative, I feel. Like Kylo stopping the laser bolt with the Force. Like, that's cool and that makes sense. You're like, oh, that makes sense that, like, using the Force could do something like that. Or, like, Luke Force projecting himself. Like, these were new things that make sense for, like, you know, using the Force. And they're cool, and, like, the prequels just missed such an opportunity. Like, this is supposedly, like, okay, well, everyone says they're diminishing in power or whatever, but, like, so supposedly you have thousands of Jedi, this is at the height of their power before their fall. So, like, could we see some imagination? Like, I just, the Jedi are so lame, if that's all they can do. The Jedi we see in the original trilogy is, like, we see like Luke. Luke is not a true Jedi until like the end of the last movie. So you're almost kind of like, wow, the potential afterwards is like so much greater, right? Like he was just on the cusp of learning these things. So, but just to learn that, like, well, no, he got it all.
You're good to go, fam. It is lame. Honestly, I think my one of my favorite, it's not necessarily a new force power, but it's just a new way the force is used, is like Snoke. Like, Snoke is huge and kind of, I don't know, like, kind of, he's clearly been messed up. He's had some rough days. So, like, how might Snoke engage in, like, a fight, you know? He just kind of sits around and he literally moves tiny humans around like puzzle pieces. He, like, moves Rey to, like, make her look through the window. And I thought it was a cool, unique thing for him. Like, rather than...
Yeah, he was, like, moving him around like chess pieces was neat.
Yeah, like, it doesn't need to, like, introduce... You don't need to just pump in new Force things just because. Like, I think they should still serve the character in some way. And I just thought that was really fitting for his character. Like, I don't really hear a lot of people talk about that, but, like, going back and watching those scenes, I was like, oh, that's like a cool thing that he only does. And I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Star Wars is so exhausting.
It's only exhausting when people make it exhausting.
I'm going to go because I'm very hungry. I've been eating all day.
Yeah, I'm probably going to head out too. I've been just looking... This stream has been me arguing and just looking for pieces that probably aren't here. So, thanks to everyone who tuned in. Boyo Fiesta was nice to get to talk to you Houston guys. Ethan, I didn't realize Ethan was even still here. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing good.
Really?
I just got done
been here the whole
eating.
time.
Oh, okay.
I had problems with my audio at first, so that's why.
Oh, right. I see.
But I had switched it to my computer. Now it's good.
Got you. Yeah, shout out to everyone who is still here for some reason. Shout out to the people who donated. I really appreciate that. And yeah, okay, so here's the thing. I guess I should say before I head out. My birthday's on Monday, so I'm gonna do a birthday stream. That'll hopefully be a good time, and we'll keep it moving from then. So take care, dudes.
Yeah, it was a fun stream. Glad to be a part.